It says, are we ready to go live? We are ready to go live. Look at this handsome SOB I got in front of me today. This is,
Oh man,
I met you in
what?
person, and I mean, it was a pleasure to meet you one on one, face to face. But on camera, it adds 20 pounds to me, but it adds 10 pounds of muscle to you. So that's
if only it worked like that. That would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on today, man. This is welcome to the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast. I'm John McGlynn. This is just me yapping into a headset. It's what I love to do while talking to some awesome fantasy football people I found on the Twitter machine or in person or somewhere else in this fantasy football community. Today, I had the pleasure of speaking with David Mendelson. We'll talk about his life, his career outside of fantasy football, his hobbies, some other fun questions, and we'll jump into some commissioner questions, some settings he prefers and leagues he plays in. NFL news, rumors, injuries, week 13 waiver wire targets. We'll review some trades that went down in the Mighty McGlynn home leagues, my set of leagues that I run that are all local people I found on Twitter. And then, as usual, we'll evaluate a team to see if what you do to what you recommend, David, to either rebuild or remodel the roster and the steps we could take to do it there. So let's tell me about you, about yourself, where the Twitter machine can find you, and what you do in the fantasy football world that makes people want to follow you.
Ooh, yeah, that's the interesting question. Well, of course, you can follow me on Twitter at dmendio2 if you're watching the bottom right there, if I could point the right way. Yeah, so I like to think that I tweet out some interesting stuff, whether it's like, I tweet out fantasy stats, obviously articles that I write, but I do dad jokes too, and a lot of food stuff. I love posting about food. I try to keep the fitness stuff, even though I work out a lot, but like, I know people sometimes get annoyed. They see workout posts or they see, you doing a certain thing. So I do post that every once in a while too. Just it's not as much as the other two, but if you enjoy just like good fantasy advice, or I hope it's good fantasy advice, plus just a little bit of fun and something to make you laugh, that's what I try to do at least when I post.
I see it. I love it. It makes me laugh. A lot of stuff makes me laugh though. So that's but I love your stuff. I love everything you do. I see you're friends with a guy named Michael Carter on Facebook. He does. I mean, on Twitter, he does mostly baseball stuff with you. How do you know that guy?
Mike Carter is one of the best and nicest people I've ever met. I met him through fantasy baseball. He's a big fantasy baseball guy, and I remember he was always interacting with our stuff. We would just put out this is like even a year and a half ago when Triple Play was very early on, and he was interacting like, great show. I loved it. And I was like, who's watching our show? I was like, this is awesome. And he just kept commenting and kept interacting. And I was like, you know what? Like, we got to get him on the show. I was like, if he's tuning in that much. So we asked him to come on, and he was like at home and his power was out that night. So he drove to work. Like he drove I think 20 or 30 minutes to his job so he could go into his office. He's a principal at the school he's at.
Yeah.
And just so he could record the pod with us. He was like, I wasn't going to miss this opportunity. I've never been on a podcast. Like this is like, I wasn't going to do that, like miss this. And he not only is he super knowledgeable, but like, he's so humble. He's so smart. And like right away after that, like after having him on and talking face to face, you can tell how special an individual he is. And ever since then, I think he just set the record for the most times we've ever had anybody on a show, like on any platform. And I think he's been on like 5 or 6 times now. And he's just a great guy. And one of the best guys I know.
Next time you have him on, let him know that you were on. I mean, I'm sure hopefully he sees this tonight, unless he has me blocked on Twitter, which I doubt. I'm just kidding. I've been on baseball teams with him since I've been in like first grade. He went to West Lawn Little League. He's part of the Dub. He's part of the Dub Club. He's a West Lawn Little League guy. Me and him used to ride the bench all the time. His brother's an awesome guy too. His dad was our coach growing up. I've known him my entire life. Michael Carter is one of the best people on the face of the earth. He's an honest guy. Tells it like it is. He's just happy. He's like one of those people, like, it's like walking around with a happy puppy dog all the time. He's just happy to be alive. He has fun no matter what he does. I could bring him. Me and him could go sit in an insurance seminar and have a good time. He's just an awesome dude. So I love hearing good stories about good people.
I feel like I was born in the wrong area because it's like, Michael Carter, like you and Nick Scripp, like you and Steven Johnson. Like there's so many great people in that Chicago area that I feel like that know each other and like just in the fantasy community in general. I'm like, man, like there's only a couple guys out where I'm at, and like all you guys are like so close and live like close to another. And I'm like, man, I should have grew up in Chicago.
When I say these Mighty McGlynn home leagues, I kind of do it all the time. I hashtag it, or I talked about it earlier. What those Mighty McGlynn home leagues of mine that I talk about are myself going on Twitter and finding people that have like Chicago, Illinois, or Naperville, Illinois, or something. And I went inbox them and I said, hey, what do you think about, would you mind being part of this fantasy football league? I'm doing a home league for the Illinois people. Now, I don't know if you know James Catullus is,
but familiar.
He died a couple years ago. He was part of our home league. I was in Mike Taglier's home league. He's my neighbor. He lives a couple blocks away from me, but he was anyway, super awesome dude. My Joe Castleman across the street from me. Another guy I met through I met Mike through him. And Joe's an awesome fantasy football player. He doesn't like to trade, which, I try to go to his garage every Sunday night and watch football, and try to trade with him, but he doesn't make it happen. But yeah, in this area, I was at a live draft with Evan Silva, Rob Wozniak, Nick Scripp, Connor Allen, Scott Sidlow, Kyle August, Steven Johnson, Colin Taylor, Amar from 4 for 4, them guys, P-Win Dynasty. There's tons of local guys who are in these Mighty McGlynn home leagues that I do. And a lot of friends I've known since that have been in fantasy football from 1995. Sean Roach, Joe Galum, Tim O'Brien, guys, they're not really Twitter crazy people like we are, but these guys are all people that are in my home leagues that I run. And the way I do them is whoever wins the league gets to whoever wins the toilet bowl gets to pick the draft lottery location. We have a draft lottery for our home leagues and all the leagues. And then whoever wins the league gets to pick the draft location for the rookie draft the following year. So every year, each team has 2 parties. I buy a ring out of my own pocket for each league. Just, it says the name, what's going on there, what the record was, what league it is, all that kind of stuff. I spend a couple $100 on just rings as trophies for whoever won the league. It's a nice little something. Just thanks for being part of the league thing. So, it's awesome. It's fun running these leagues. So I wish you were around here. You'd definitely be in them too. As far as that goes. But
I wish I was too. Better than the leagues I'm in right now.
Nick lives literally. I could walk there, but I'm too fat. So I drive over there. I go by his house on at noon, 11:30, something on Sundays when he's having people over. He's got a garage full of dudes. We sit and watch football all day. His family comes over. We play CLR while the games are going on. We're trying to make trades, talk about football stuff. But it's. A lot of these people are only 10 minutes away from me, 15 minutes away from me. So it's super nice in the Chicagoland area. When you got 3 million people to kind of be around you, it's pretty easy to find 40 people to be in home leagues with. So it's a nice setup. And I don't run any redraft league stuff like that. All my stuff's dynasty. So these guys are in for the long run. They're all people who have podcasts or that writes articles or do both, or whatever. So it's all knowledgeable people. It's not like. I got Joe from the, Jewel over here that I asked on the way home to join a league to fill somebody. Everybody here is they're all, you see them on podcasts, every week. I think Steven Johnson's podcast on at the same time as mine right now. He's trying to steal my viewers, but, whatever. But these guys are all knowledgeable. I don't know if you know who Kyle August is, but he's been doing, he's in our leagues too. He's a very knowledgeable guy. He makes all kind of moves. He's a waiver wire bandit. Everybody seems to have one specialty. One guy trades a lot. One guy kills the waiver wire all the time, or that kind of stuff. It's everybody. It just seems like there's aces for everything, and I like to trade right from the get go. Get rid of all my picks for the next 2 years and try to get quarterbacks. I got Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, on a lot of my teams. So I had to get rid of a lot of stuff right from the get go to start that. But now I have the next 10 years and never have to worry about starting a quarterback in my that kind of stuff. So I'll trade for draft picks. I'll get receivers. I'll get running backs. All that stuff will just come in time, but. Replacing quarterback is the hardest thing. So let's get back to the show sheet here so I don't talk for 3.5 hours. It was awesome meeting you in person at the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton. And it was refreshing to see your passion, the passion you have for really making, you trying to make a run to be a full-time analyst. You've already made such big strides since even just from a couple months ago in Canton. And I hope, I'm hoping that you're full steam ahead towards your dream. Where do you think you'll be in a year from now and 5 years from now? Because there's no ceiling as far as I'm concerned with your ability.
Oh, I appreciate that. To be honest, I'm not sure. In a year from now, I would love to be full time, and then in 5 years from now, have a very solidifying role. as a full-time analyst, more than not just like kind of, hey, you're just being brought on to being like you're a big part of where we're at. Like I've kind of haven't said it too much publicly, but for those that don't know, I'm a teacher right now, and with how bad things have been in education, I've been very much looking to get out of education, and just that's where my passion for this has grown even more. It's just like I'm gonna work my butt off day in, day out, even though I'm teaching, from 7 to 3, and then I'm coaching basketball from 3 to 5 every day.
Mhm.
And so it's like, the days are really long. I'm coming home, I'm doing show sheets, and I'm reaching out, trying to get guests, interviews on for our shows. And I'm like, because at the end of the day, I'm like, I just, this grind, I was like, it's going to be worth it. Like, you're working towards a potential new career, and you can't just put that on the back burner, even if you have other things going on. So my goal is to be by the fall of 2022 to really be full-time in the fantasy space, even if it's not at a position where I want to be quite yet, that I can start out and then I can spend every day working even harder doing that to get to a better position. So that's my year goal, is just to be full-time in the space. And then within 5 years, have a very much solidified role at a very well-established company. Assuming, of course, Triple Play doesn't get to where I want to be. Being able to run my own company would be like the easy number one if that were to work out.
Well, like I said, I think we talked about this when we picked you up on the way to Canton. And I talked about watching the person in Mike Tagliere do what he does for a living.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a full-time job from 5:15 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, Monday through Sunday, every day. The guy never really left his house. We come over for 3 o'clock. We come over for noon games, show up at about 11:30. I'd bring a couple beers over there. We'd get some pizza. Tabby would make something for us, like some kind of dip or whatever. Jonathan would be jumping all over the place. We watch the games on the red zone. Mike had a couple awesome screens and stuff. But as soon as the noon games are over with, Mike walked to the back of the room. He goes, "Oh, guys, just whoever he had over there, just enjoy the game. I'll talk to you." But he started that primer, that 40,000 word primer every week. And that 40,000 word primer was one of probably 40 things or 50 things he did throughout the week. He had like 4 or 5 podcasts every day. He had to write articles every day, waiver wire stuff, this and that. I mean, I've never seen somebody, first of all, with a passion for it, but with a work ethic and with everything. And I know that I could never watching him do it. First of all, I'm lazy. I like drinking. I like going out, have a good time. I go to bars all the time, watching the game. I'd rather watch the game than write about the game. I'm a football player. I've played football. I watch football. I coach football. I've done all that stuff. I can't miss a game to be on a podcast. There's a game going on behind me. I was watching, just kind of looking at stuff, but there's no way I could ever be a writer like that. First of all, because I can't type. And second of all, because I'm not that smart and I don't spell that well. And I hate reading things all the time. I love podcasts, so.
Yeah.
But what you put out, you're younger, you got the drive for it. The world is your oyster. I mean, so go for it. If you want to put that time in, you're already spending a full-time job, and the entire time from 7 to 3 when you'd be at school, you could be doing fantasy football stuff and killing it. Go for it, man, because we're all here for you.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, I've just hearing podcasts, Mike Tagliere specifically, you mentioned all that he did and the amount of work he put in. I'm to this day, and I mean, this is not, I don't have any evidence on this. This is kind of from what I've gathered. I don't think anybody worked as hard as him, just from what you've told me and from what I've heard from other analysts talk about. Because he used to be an accountant or a banker or something, right? Wasn't he?
He was a banker, yeah, and he didn't really like the job too much. Tabby got a job, and she's like, "Mike, now's the time. Our income's where it's at. If you want to do fantasy football, make a run at it." It was funny because they had their own little podcast. It was Mike and Tabby, and I think it was called I always forget the name of it, but they would get on together and they would talk about the podcasting, that they'd go team by team, waiver wire stuff, and they'd have little arguments. And they were the cutest couple because even their fights would be oh, Tabby, stop it, like,
Yeah.
oh, Mike, Michael, and that would be it. Like, now me and my wife are like two cats in a pillowcase fighting when we go at it, it's like, and Mike and Tabby were just like, oh, that's okay. Well, we'll talk about it. It's okay. Even if they didn't agree on stuff, it was so like they smiled and were passive about it. It was so funny. And where they started at, to where they're at, like to where Mike got to, it was just amazing, because that was just any normal person making a podcast, and he turned it into an empire by, what he wanted to do. And I did it my way, the Frank Sinatra song, like he did it, and it was just amazing to be there for the ride, or we'll see it for pretty much the whole time. So,
and I mean, it's not a secret too. Like, there's no shot at anybody else at Fantasy Pros, but if you would go and you look at like when he would write up players compared to anybody else there, it was so much more detailed. Like, I mean, just to be able to, I mean, anybody that's at Fantasy Pros going and writing all this stuff about player after player after player has to get very tedious. But the man was literally doing, this person had a 30% target share the first 6 games of the year, and then that jumped to a 44% target share the next 8 games of the year. Right. And I'm like digging in stat after stat after stat, and that's where I was like, you can see that nobody's putting in the type of work he is, and that's why he was so, everybody respected him so much. And I think, he's an example of someone that worked extremely hard, and not saying others don't. I remember we had Mike Wright on the Triple Play podcast before the season started, and I asked him directly, and I was like, hey, so the episode was building a brand, so we were just focusing on how they built the footballers, and like for all the other companies out there that are trying to do what they're doing. And he was like, I'm going to be completely honest with you. He said, we got in at the right time. He said, at the time that we started doing it, nobody else was doing it. That wasn't like an ESPN or CBS or anything like that. So he said, us being an independent pod and that stuff not being around too much, like it allowed us to get a lot of people tuning into what we were doing. But he was like, now that it's so much more saturated, he's like, I don't be honest with you. He's like, I don't know if we would have gotten to where we're at if we had started, 2 years later.
Yeah.
And so he was like, that's the unfortunate part of it. He's like, not saying it can't happen, but he's like, there's so much more out there now.
Yeah. And right.
So that's where you're like, you have to do, I think that's what stuck out to me more when I talked with him, as like, you have to do something that's different. Ultimately, you have to have something about what you're doing, who you are, whatever it is. If you're just a person that's good at fantasy football and trying to have a podcast, you're not going to get to where you want to be if that's ultimately your goal. You got to have a niche. You got to have something that makes you stand out to others where they're recommending your stuff. It's very much so where you have to put in that extra work and figure out what it is you're going to offer to the audience. And that's, I think, what hit me most when we had him on that episode.
When you talk about that, who are the people who, I'm not going to say like, I don't want to say like idols or something like that, whatever, but who are the people that you just right from the get-go, like, man, that guy just makes me want to do it, or this guy influenced me so much to be where I'm at now, or I'm striving to be like this guy. If there's like, maybe 1, 2, 3 people that really kind of, got you in, or, got you into this thing and said, I could do that too. And now are still to this day, even though I don't know how many 6,000, 7,000, 10,000 followers, or, to this day, even though you have a big following, you're still striving to be as good as those people are. Who are those people?
It's 3. There's 3 guys that have been inspirations, and I've been lucky enough to talk with, have on the show, and continue to either model what I want to be like, or have given me advice, have helped me. And that is Field Yates, Jamie Eisenberg, and Adam Azer. Those 3 have been very important to me in different ways. So Jamie Eisenberg was the first one to come on my show Adam came on first, but Jamie was the one that didn't just come on and hey, I'm coming on, I'm doing this, doing that, whatever. Like, he came on my show, and then after we were just talking, just me and him talking after the show, I was like, this is passion, this is a dream I'm chasing. And we just sat for like 20, 25 minutes after the show, and I was just picking his brain, and he was kind of giving me advice, and was, basically kind of just walking me along with what it takes, and encouraging me, and basically kind of say, I'm always in your corner. And anytime you need anything, please reach out to me. Like, I'm glad to help in any way I can. And I've been in contact with him since then. You know, he got me on a mock draft. The CBS did in the off season. He just like reached out to me after he came on the show, and he was like, "You want to join us for a mock?" So he's been very like, and I think
were you like, of course?
I was like, I was like, I mean, you're like, I was speechless, but I also think he's the most knowledgeable analyst too. If I had to pick an analyst, so that also to me is where he stands out. Adam Azer, I think, is the best host overall in the any fantasy sport, honestly. And I've picked up a lot of hosting stuff just from listening to him, and I've tried to emulate my hosting, kind of how he does things. And I think he's by far and away. But listening to all the stuff he does and how he prepares, the creativity he has. He's been the guy that, as far as that's, I think, what I do most than anything is I host. Yeah. And I've tried to become a really good host, and that starts with him. So he's he's been on, he was on our baseball show when we first started, and then he was on our football show a few months ago, and he great guy, of course, too, which made that help. And then Field Yates probably was the most direct one to influence me, because I mean, everybody loves Field Yates. Field Yates is an awesome dude. But he was the one that got me the writing gig to where I'm at now, because he came on one time, did a fantasy foodies show with me and Bo McBrayer and Steffi Smalls. And, you know, we were just kind of every once in a while would message, but like nothing crazy. And then one time he just DM'd me, and it was actually at a point, and I know every content creator feels this way. It was at a point where like sometimes you're like, man, like, is it worth it? Like, you know, podcast like things are staying the same, going down. Like, I feel like I'm just in a rut. I feel like I'm putting in so much work, and not that you're upset when others around you are excelling, because you're like, I'm happy because my friends are doing well, but you're like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And I was kind of at a little bit of a low point, and he DM'd me out of the blue, and he said something like along the lines of like, you know, hey man, like, I know you're super busy with teaching, and you know, you're doing stuff with Triple Play, which I was like, man, the fact that he even just is mentioning that is really cool. But he was like, you know, there's a gig that opened up at, you know, the 33rd team. It's, you know, and it was formed by Mike Tannenbaum and Joe Banner. And he said they're really starting to push more fantasy content there. And he said you were the first name that popped into my mind as far as what would be great for this gig. He's like, I know you're busy, so I understand if it's not something you can do right now. I just wanted to say that you were, I would be happy to give them your name if you're interested. And I had to like, the rest of my day was like completely just like shot to shit in a good way. Like, I was just like, what? Like, I was like, I don't care what I'm doing right now. I was like, I was calling like my brother. I was like calling my dad. I was like, holy crap. I was like, this is freaking nuts. And, you know, sure enough, he like sent a nice email out to the people at the 33rd team. There's a couple, like, you know, obviously Mike Tannenbaum is there, and Jade McCarthy, who is an ESPN anchor there, is also a big part of that, what they're doing. They do this Sirius XM show, and he put us in contact, and he, you know, he's like, anything you need, buddy, like, you know, I got you. And was very much, he was the most direct fully impact to me. And that's something I could never thank for, because he gave me hope that outside of Triple Play that I could potentially be in the space because of that gig that he got me. And it's a platform that's growing very quickly.
Yeah.
And they told me directly, they said we had 7 guys that were here last year get jobs in the pro football. They got jobs as like, I think it was like assistant scouts and a couple other things. So they said, would you be interested in a job in pro football if a job opened up too? And I was like, yes. I was like,
yeah.
So I was like, you know, I was like, fantasy is my preference, but I was like, if a job in pro football opened up, and you know, I was like, heck yes, I'm in. And so that was, I think, those 3, but the Field Yates especially, for what he did for me and what he continues to, you know, I know if I DM him, he always will respond, just because that's the type of guy he is. And so that he was the one that was the most impactful for me. And I sometimes I'm just like, I don't even believe what he did for me, and I'm very thankful for that.
Awesome. I love hearing that. I love hearing when other people help other people in this industry. And, you know, people complain all the time. I see people, oh, Twitter sucks. And I see so many good people on Twitter, man. I don't really see too many negative people. I mean, a lot of that stuff you just kind of, drowned out or do whatever. But when one feel good story can get rid of 10 bad stories anyway. So that's super awesome. What's your favorite part of this whole fantasy football experience? Are you like a redraft guy, a DFS stuff, best ball, dynasty league, just podcasting, writing, something else? Like what? Like out of the whole grand scheme of all fantasy sports, whether it be football, baseball, what's your favorite thing to do? Podcast, write, play. What are you thinking?
I think podcasting is my favorite. I'll be very clear. I only write because unless you're one of the very rare few that you can get into the industry without writing, you have to be able to write. So I didn't do that at all in high school. So this was very basically over the last 2 years, I've learned how to write I still use Grammarly. Like if I don't have Grammarly, it would be very bad. But that's definitely last on the list. But podcasting, I just love getting on here and like prepping up show sheets and just being able to talk shop like you're talking with like your friends. You're just like, all right, like who are we picking up in PPR this like in our PPR league? It's a 15-team league. Waiver wire is a little bit more scarce. Like who are you looking at this week? And then next week you come on, I called that guy, and then like you could I love the getting on a mic and doing that. Playing is always fun too, but I mean, I was interested to hear your thought on this. The more leagues you're in, the less fun I've found it is to play because everybody's cannibalizing. You have this guy on 2 rosters, but then you're facing him on 3 other rosters. And I'm like, to me, this was the first year I went more than 3 leagues, and I'm now in 15. And I was like, man, I just literally, I'm like, the leagues I need wins, I'm rooting more than the leagues I don't. But I was like, it's more like the process throughout the weekend, my DFS lineups to where I'm trying to win big money, and like my season longs and some dynasty leagues. I'm like, I hope I can win. I'm looking at the box score a couple times throughout the day, but it's not like when it used to be where you're like, it's literally up on your screen the entire day as you're watching Red Zone and watching the scores change like it used to be for me.
When you say used to be, well, I'll elaborate on that a little bit just because you kind of asked me. You say used to be. We started playing in 1997 when you had to physically drive to your commissioner's house with a piece of paper with the names on there, and you had to have it by 11:59 on Sunday morning. There was no Thursday night games at that point in time. So Sunday morning, 11:59, you had to have your stuff. And because if you tried calling at 11:30 you had to wait for the injury report and all that stuff. You had to call the commissioner's house, but there was no cell phones. There was no call waiting on the phone. There wasn't even voicemail yet on the phones. So this was like you had to run to your commissioner's house, drop the paper off. And if you dropped the paper off and the Sunday night guy or the Monday night guy was hurt, you got a 0. There was no waiver wire. There was no internet. There was nothing to look up stuff.
Oh, my God.
It was like absolutely terrible. That was what it was. And if you were like just ran home from church and you didn't have time to get to your commissioner's house, you try calling and you get the beep, beep, beep. And you're like, son of a bitch. And you hang up again on the wall phone. My dad's like, let's go. I got to use the phone. I'm like, I'm trying to call my lineup in. Beep, 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 beep. I'm like, give me Peyton Manning. Give me so-and-so. Give me Dan Marino. Give me whatever. But if you didn't get it past, you got a 0 for the week.
God.
There was no PPR. It was like 2 running backs, 1 quarterback, 2 wide receivers, a kicker, a defense, and a tight end. And like, it was like some of the scores would end up being like 9-7, 3 field goals because they're, 17-16 or because nobody scored or it was a defensive game. Everything back then, there was no like spread offense. It was like 2 yards in a cloud of dust kind of stuff. It was all, every game had a fullback. It was Matsui. It was, Tom Rathman. It was everybody had a fullback. There was 2 wide receivers, a fullback, and a tight end. That's kind of how offenses were set up back then. So it was low scoring, non-PPR stuff. It was you just went. It was great. It was great because it was so simple. But like now you can go on like 90 different sites and find out. There's lineup generators now where you can put every one of your leagues in there and they set them up for you. It's almost like cheating now. You should be. You could do 0 homework at all and pay $3 to Fantasy Pros or whoever it is to do a lineup generator for a month and not do anything besides join a league. Like that's kind of BS. I still do all the homework. I rank stuff all the time. I do that kind of thing. I put my work in, as far as that goes. And it just sucks when the guys, I'm in 19 leagues. So the hardest part is coming at 11:15 waiting for the final injury report to come out for all that stuff, and then see who's hurt, and then just go there and double check all my lineups, So a lot of times it's getting stressful. I'm on like league 7. I'm like, oh shit, well this guy's out. What do I do? I got to pick someone up from the waiver wire, and it's like tick, 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 tick. It's getting close to noon. I got 7 more lineups to do. Like, you can set them up all you want to before, that time before. You can set it up in the morning or the night before, but when it gets close to, you still have to go through them all at the last minute to make sure everything's done. It's before the 3 o'clock game, before the 7 o'clock game, before the Monday night game. You got to do all that stuff, especially Thanksgiving. That throws you to a loop every year when it's Thursday games going on too. And there's so many injuries this year, so
it's tough, man. Like I'm interested when you have, like, if you get news, like let's say, and I don't know if you have it where waivers are like, once waivers run through that you can add people until the games kick off.
No, our waivers are like, there's no waivers until Wednesday morning, and then Wednesday morning the waivers start, and then I guess it is free for all as far as that goes. But you have to wait till Wednesday morning. You can't just do it right when the guys are done playing.
Yes. Okay. So let's say Wednesday morning comes after waivers run.
Yeah.
And let's say Wednesday practice at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Alexander Madison goes down, and the new guy Kenny
Ngagwe, my guy.
Let's say Alexander Madison, God forbid, tweaks his ankle in practice, and he is going to be doubtful for this week. Mm-hmm. And he obviously Kene comes in there, and he's the next guy up. Now, do you have an order of leagues, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go starting at this league and go pick him up every single league I can? Because 19 leagues, you probably, by the time you get to like your 15th league, people are going to have heard that news and probably have gone and got him.
Yeah. And the leagues, I'm in like the fishbowl. I consider one of my leagues, but those are all the redraft leagues. I'm going to get away from almost all my redraft stuff next year, but like I'm in the European fantasy football contest. I'm in the Scott Fishbowl. I'm in the Irish Champions League. I'm in I have 8 dynasty leagues anyway, which I consider them like those are my. I'm in a league with Evan Silva for the Yahoo Fantasy, like where there's like 60 people from just Chicago. It was one big live 4 individual leagues all at the bar one time with all Chicago people meeting each other, shaking Evan Silva's hand, sitting next to Waz, sitting next to Evan Silva, like all people. Amar, it was cool, like being at that place with just Chicago people. It was a big live draft. I still talk to people via text I met that night that are in our leagues. Hopefully if I start in our dynasty league around there, I got 10, 12 more people to choose from those awesome leagues. The people who are involved, I can kind of see. The people who don't set lineups anymore, I don't even bother talking to, as far as that goes. But I'm in a league that is very expensive, and that's kind of my priority. I don't want to go and elaborate for tax purposes, whatever. But the leagues that are the most important to you, you find you kind of put them in order, prioritize. Like, man, this is even if you're 0-7 in this dynasty league, but it's your favorite league because those people are the most involved. Mm-hmm. That should be your, if it's for $75 or $2,000. That's kind of, I don't have a league that's under $75. As far as that goes, most of them are $250 to $500 and above. As far as that goes, so but sometimes the $75 one it was one of the first ones I started as far as home leagues are concerned. So it's literally the most the most the most important as far as I'm concerned. But every other league I started after that, or that sometimes I started 2 a year because I had so many people to do it. Those ones are important too, but sometimes the people go nuts on this chat, and sometimes they go nuts on that chat. And I'm the commissioner of all these leagues, so I have to like make it every time somebody bitches about something or that. I mean, you will prioritize over time which ones are your most important ones. Obviously, money's important, but the leagues that are really, really active are the ones that you really want to be part of. And it sucks when you start leagues and guys are active for a couple of weeks and then they kind of drop off, or sometimes you have guys. I went out till 5 a.m. a couple of weeks ago, and I had my lineup set before then, but it was a last minute scratch, and I woke up at like 12:15, and I didn't set my lineups, and I'm like, son of a bitch, I had to apologize to everybody across every league. I'm like, listen, it didn't affect like 16 leagues, but there was like 3 leagues I had that I didn't have a person I had a person that was non-active or a late scratch, and I'm like, fudge. So it happens, but
right,
it's all up to you. I wouldn't let monetary things, obviously it's important to win the money, but the more fun you have should be your priority.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to look at it for sure, especially as the leagues are. And I'm sure that's one of the things I recognized, like getting into the industry more, as I was like, you're gonna have a bunch of leagues. You're not used to that. Like, you better just figure out which leagues are the ones that are more important to you, where you're gonna, like, not saying you're gonna have more priority to fix those than others, but I've found that, like, I was like, yeah, crap. I was like, I haven't even, like, I didn't do the waiver wire this week in one league because I like forgot and I missed all the pickups and.
Yeah.
So like that, I get that. So I think that's something I'm learning more over time.
Yeah. Tell me about the family life. You got any kids, pets, family trips going on? I'll let you say the story. I saw some important stuff on your page, but tell me about your family life. What's going on outside of this Twitter world?
I got a beautiful wife and I got a dog that I adore to death. Kids in the future, probably in like the next, couple of years. But for right now, yeah, it's us three, and we got a nice little apartment in Baltimore. So they're my whole family. I mean, I obviously love like my mom, dad, and brothers and all that stuff. But like, it's like my little family here. And as far as vacations, we're going to Ireland in July.
Awesome.
So that's going to be something I'm really looking forward to. We talked about doing Aruba again because we went for our honeymoon in September. But we had to cut it a little bit short. So we were like, maybe we can do that again. That was something we talked about. But and then we're talking about potentially doing like a triple play trip to going to like Arizona with, everybody on the triple play team. We could, there's like 23, 24 of us now. So we just go out there and do a weekend, just like a little retreat with the whole triple play crew. So a couple fun stuff we were talking about doing this summer.
I got the luxury of going. The draft was in Chicago for 2 years, the NFL draft, and I worked right across the street from where the draft was going on. So I saw the first truck pull up and I saw the last truck leave, and I was there every day from the whole time. But I saw the guys walking around, sick. And I got invited by Mike Tagliere to go to Tennessee with his wife and all the Fantasy Pros guys. We had rooftop on the whatever his name is. I can't remember the country singer guys or whatever. We had rooftop with the Fantasy Pros guys watching the NFL draft from a block away. It was absolutely awesome. It was super cool. So I love going to the NFL draft. I've been to a couple of them, and there's no experience like it.
It looks freaking awesome. That's on my bucket list for sure. That's freaking dope that you got to do that.
It is awesome. It's every city you go to, and you live in Baltimore. My daughter plays lacrosse in Baltimore every year. So when I'm there next year, I'll look you up and we're going to do something.
We're going to get drinks. We're going to get smashed. We're going to
get smashed. I don't know how you eat so much. You're talking about doing that burger challenge, and it scared me. And you're like, I'm going to do this. I'm like, how are you going to do it? And then here I am. I eat half a cow every day when I come home from work, and I don't understand how you even thought about doing that challenge. But it sucks that bar was closed in Cleveland.
I know.
Or Canton. I would have loved to see. I was going to join you to try and do it and try and show you up a little bit if I possibly could. But I was scared, and you were like, "Let's go! I'm going to eat this big ass burger."
Nothing scares me after there's a pizza challenge around here. It's a 30-pound pizza.
What?
And what
do you weigh? Like 120 pounds? How would you eat a 30-pound pizza?
Well, you and a partner get to split it, and you get an hour to do it. So it's like the actual pizza itself is like 20 pounds, and then it's like 25 pounds, and then it's like 5 pounds of toppings. And like there is nothing like seeing that pizza, and then any other challenge you see after that, you're like, I may not do it, but you're like, I don't get scared looking at it because seeing that pizza, like it's another level. Like I was gonna talk with a couple of the guys in Maryland that are around here to be like, hey, like we got to stream like this pizza challenge just so people can see how big this pizza is.
If you're ever by our house, there's a place called Our Place by us, and it's a 5-pound hamburger. And so if you eat it, it's free. It's $30. If you eat it, it's free. Now I went there, and it's like you're talking about. It's like a birthday cake. It's like this big. It's humongous. But you have to. It's a half pound of 3 condiments. So I'm like, all right, give me lettuce, cheese, and mustard. And they're like, no, it's got to be condiments. Yeah, so I'm like, all right, give me grilled onions. Like grilled onions are too heavy. It's got to be regular onions, tomatoes, pickles. I'm like, I can't eat a half pound of pickles. Like, and I hate tomatoes and I hate onions. I don't mind grilled onions, but I can't have regular onions on a sandwich. I'll throw up. There's no way. So I paid for it and I ate it. I ate the whole thing, but it's 5-pound hamburger is pretty. There's a lot of bread on there. It's pretty.
Oh yeah,
literally, it's like it's like 8 pieces. You're smashing it down. You're drinking. They probably drank like 12 beers with it. But it's tough to get through, man. A 5-pound hamburger is no joke.
That's pretty impressive. 5 pounds is a lot.
It is a lot. You're talking about eating a 30-pound pizza.
Well, I was proud of myself because I've done the challenge twice, or I've attempted it twice, and the first time I did it, I did 2 3/4 of it, wow. So it's 8 slices, and I did 2 3/4 slices, and then the second time I only did 2 slices. But they said the average person doesn't even finish 1, and if I can compare it, 1 slice is like an entire medium pizza. That's how I can compare it. So like, if you think you and a partner can eat each 4 medium pizzas, you can do it.
I can do that probably.
You think?
Yeah, I'm like 360 pounds, man. So I'm a svelte 360, but
it's thick, dude. Like I'm not even kidding. It's like this thick, like the crust. Like it's not like a thin pizza. It's like very bready too.
Here's the question though: is it like a buttery, crispy crust, or is it some garbage crust? Because if it's good, you can force it down. But if it's bad pizza, I'm kind of spoiled being from Chicago, so pizza's pretty good around here. If I go somewhere and I get some garbage pizza and it's hard to, every bite's like, if it's good, you can get a lot more down. But if it's not good, it's almost impossible to finish it. That kind of stuff.
Well, since you're coming from Chicago, it's definitely not going to compare because Chicago deep dish is freaking incredible. But it's like if you get the regular pizza, just like a normal pizza from there, it's pretty good. But this pizza, it's very just like chewy. It's like the crust isn't like. You chew into the crust. It's not like that crunch, and it's not crispy. It's just like bread. It's like breadsticks, and you're like, oh, okay. Like even just chewing the crust, like get your jaw tired because it's so much bread.
Right.
But it's definitely when you see the pizza, it takes up like 2 full tables worth. Like it's freaking. You're like, oh my god. You're like, how am I?
Next time I go to Baltimore for my daughter's lacrosse, me and you're going to do that thing, all right?
Oh hell yeah! Yeah, for sure. Knocking that out.
All right. Let's see. You already told me about you being a teacher, and that's a cool hobby. It's commendable. Teachers nowadays are, they have to have a lot of patience. I give you guys a lot of credit. That's what was your best hobby before you started getting into fantasy? Before you entered the fantasy football kind of world?
I've always just enjoyed it. Like I still work as a part-time as a personal trainer, and so I mean, just working out. Like I love just getting in the gym, and like whether it's stress from work. Whether it's just like I want time to myself, I love going there. I love setting new records for myself, like whether it's a max on an exercise or being able to push myself, like doing 5 more minutes at this speed on the Stairmaster. Being able to always just push myself, kind of when you stop playing sports as much, so you have to kind of have that competitiveness when you go there. That's definitely been my biggest passion. I always say it's like. Fantasy, fitness, and food are like the 3 big things in my life as far as like my hobbies and interests. So fitness and food were like the other things besides fantasy that before that I was always looking at.
Yeah. I try to set the record for who could stay in the hot tub the longest, or maybe the sauna. That's kind of my favorite 2 parts of the gym. I go there, do all the lazy stuff, stretch out a little bit, walk around. Me and Mike were going to the gym a lot, and he was pretty serious about it. He had a regimen. He'd like, let's go. I go around myself. I put my headphones in. I'd go in the sauna for about a half hour, kind of 20 minutes, half hour. I go in the hot tub. I go to the pool and kind of get all warmed up. Then I go lift some weights, do whatever. But like the elliptical, I like doing like that kind of cardio stuff, but only like 10 minutes of it at a time. I like walking more than anything now, but I just can't stand it. We never had a gym at our high school. I went to Butter Rice High School in Chicago. And there was like one gym that was like the size of most people's garages for an entire football team. They had like 1 universal machine, 2 benches, and that was it. I mean, you see some of these gyms now that like high schools had, even grammar schools had these like 30 rows of weightlifting equipment on this side. It's a padded floor with their symbol on there and all. It's like, what the shit, Deal with Sale High School where we played, they had a sewer in the middle of the field. Like we had, so when you played, you had to stop the game and turn the thing around if you were anywhere near the sewer. Like that's kind of that's the things you did in Chicago, like at some of the schools. Everything was grass. Now you see these turf and these awesome facilities. It's like, I'm so jealous now. It's amazing how we didn't even have lights. Our games were on Saturday morning as varsity because the schools didn't even have lights.
Now, I don't even know how good they have it now. Like they really don't.
Yeah, Friday night football is like a thing across the country, and I mean, it probably always wasn't like maybe in Texas and stuff, but our games were, it was Saturday morning was the sophomore and the varsity, or the freshman and varsity was Saturday morning, and the sophomores were like Sunday morning or something like that. Whatever. But no, there was no Friday games. Nobody had lights. Like one or two schools in the state, that kind of thing. I mean, Wrigley Field didn't even get lights like the 70s, like or 80s, whatever, mid 80s. So. Yeah, I'm not a big gym guy. I'd rather go to how you call it? I used to call it the dispenser, but now I will just call it the bar for I like doing 12-ounce curls all day watching football.
I will say though, one of the things that, and I'm sure you can empathize with this too, is like after when we went on the way to Canton, like you listened to more podcasts than anybody I know. Like you're at 2x speed, right?
No, it depends on where I'm at. I have a real weird schedule. I work 4 on, 4 off, 12-hour shifts, and I have 4 days off in between. So if I have a lot of time, I will do just one speed, as far as that goes, especially in the off season, as I take a lot of notes. I just kind of showed Sidlow as far as that goes. Like what I do, most of mine are at 1.5 speed. So I was listening to Faded Chalk before we got out here right now, but these are, I listen to 52 shows. Yeah, these are all the podcasts that I'm subscribed to as far as that goes. And then most of them are at 1.5 speed, as far as that goes. But most of them are at 1.5 speed. But I also take what I do all the time. You don't have luxury just because you're a teacher, but I have my Google Sheets open all the time, and I keep notes. I trend players every month. I trend running backs, the top 125 running backs, top 125 receivers, top 120, 60 tight ends, and like 52 quarterbacks. That's what it is. And then the top 300 overall. I trend them every month, and I keep a track of for every year that's gone over. That's how I stay in touch. That's what I do to keep myself in tune with the fantasy football, the dynasty world, because I'm more of a dynasty person. So I put tons of work in there, but every one of my pages has tons and tons and tons of notes about what's going on, who's hurt, and I update the notes once a month too about what's going on, what I'm supposed to be looking for, what happened to this guy, especially rookie. My favorite time to take notes is rookie draft season, when I'm listening to Ray GQ and Matt Waldman talk about the rookies coming out, and Ryan McDowell. And I just, every time they say something, I have a different color for each analyst. Like Ray GQ, his is green. Ryan McDowell's is blue. So every time they say something, I'll write it down and I'll color it in what color, who said it, so I know I can refer to notes about who said something, as far as that goes. So I have that. I love the podcast. I love taking notes, and I love keeping, because before I'm like, how do all these people do these podcasts, remember all this stuff all the time? And I'm like, they got to be taking notes. And sure enough, like I saw like Mike doing his, and other people, like he's got a whole page of all the notes he's going to say. Like, man, no wonder why I'm trying to memorize all this shit. There's no way I can memorize all this stuff. But I learned right away that you have to have notes on everything you do to keep up with it and remember what's going on. Especially listening to many podcasts, your brain gets jumbled. But I write everything down, and it's podcast. Listening to podcasts is my version of listening to music. Some people listen to Beatles all day long, or some people listening to the whatever's on now, whatever somebody's into right now. I go to the gym and I'd go for a walk, and it's podcasts. It's what can I listen to? Who can I learn from? I listen to Adam Azer and those guys in the morning all the time on CBS. Their daily show, the Pick Six podcast, everything else. Peter Howard. I mean, all of them. The Dynasty Junkies. You guys. I mean, anything. So.
It's definitely like a good way to get information now, especially if you're like, I'm not sitting at my computer going to read a bunch of articles, and like that's the thing too, is I like when I go to the gym, I listen to podcasts now, and it's been that way for about probably the last like year and a half, 2 years, and my workouts aren't as good anymore because it's like I used to work out a lot better when I would listen to music, and like I'd be like, all right, like I'm in the zone, I'm listening to music, but then now that I listen to podcasts, it's like, oh, Jamie Eisenberg spit out a stat about like, hey, on if you're looking at like Monday night DFS slate, by the way, Tyler Lockett in Monday night games has 100 yards in the last 3 games, so he could be. And I'm like, all right, well now I have to go to my DFS lineup, and I have to think, and I have to like put him in, and then like I'm on my phone more than I should be, and I'm like, I'm more just like digesting the information, like you said, taking notes. If I hear something good, then I'm like putting it in my notepad or on my phone. And it's like, that's where I'm like, man, like I gotta stop. But like, then I'm like, I have like OCD, because I'm like, I need to get through all my podcasts. Like I was like, I don't want to like leave one, not listen to it. And I only have like, I think like 12, 13, 14 on there. And it's just like, I'm like, if I don't listen to all of them, I'm like, I could be missing something really good for this week, good information. Like, I feel like I'm like behind, and like then I like, and so I'm like, I do 2 times speed now, and I've like mastered the 2 times speed to where like I
It's
can hear 2 times and it doesn't sound too fast.
1.5 is about as far as I can go with that, and 1.25 is perfect. 1.5 is kind of the times 2. You're absorbing a lot of information, but I have to press stop all the time when I'm taking notes because it goes so fast, And if somebody's, the worst thing you can do on podcasts is have like one person screaming into the microphone and one person just kind of whispering in there, because now you turn the volume up and then it's like, and somebody's screaming, the other person's like, I just think we should do this, It's those ones I'll just skip through because I just can't do those, And hopefully we're not doing that right now, but those are the worst ones.
I think like an example is like I still listen to the 06010 because of Field Yates, obviously. Like I think the analysis for the most part isn't quite to what you might get on some other shows, but like they said a stat the other day about Cortland Sutton. I was like, this is a really good stat. And so I had it on 2 times speed, and I like rewound it and then put it on 1 times, and I screen recorded it. So then I could like, when I like played it back as I was taking notes later, I could just like play it back at the 1 time speed. So I'll do that. But like a lot of these shows too, you'll get like, they'll bring up something and then it'll be 2 minutes of banter. And I'm like, okay, okay, like at 2 times speed, I don't have to sit there and like listen. The 2 minutes is literally 60 seconds. And then,
yes,
it's done. And so yeah, that's like how I found like I'm able to get through all my podcasts in a day, usually, like even with the work hours, and digesting the information that way has been really beneficial to try to make yourself a better player. Because then also like I hear them mention like, oh, I got this stat from blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh, let me look at that site, and then I save that in my tools, and then I don't even need to listen. Sometimes I can like do that stuff myself, and that's what I do for like my articles. Is like I have all the tools that I've heard from other shows where they got stuff, and then I can start making my own like claims and stuff I want to dig into from those type of things too.
Yep. Awesome. What is I got a question from a listener that says, how did you get picked up on a show for the Disney when you were a kid? Do you know what that means?
So Eric and myself, when we were, I want to say like, I think I was in my first year of community college, and he was in his like junior year of high school. We like heard they were doing auditions for Disney on the radio, like near us, and we were like, okay, like why not? Let's just do it. So we went in, and there was probably like 200 or 300 people there, and they said they announced like to their like, we're taking 30 of you guys, as far as like past this point, and we'll meet, we'll call the 30 in, and after we're done, and take it from there type of thing. And so we did an audition. It was like by age group, and so we were in the oldest guy age group, obviously. And it was like something about a car. And so Eric and I were like, when we get together and we do the stuff, we were like, we're always are like, we stand out when we do stuff together. So they're like, all right, let's blow this away. And we were just completely goofy and obnoxious, and we made the woman laugh. And she said, I don't want to guarantee you anything, but she said, like, I think you might hear your guys' like names called at the end. She's like, I don't want to say that for sure, but I think there's a good chance. And so we got called along with like the 28 others, and then we went to like a separate area, and they told us, they're like, hey, we think that you have some potential to go, and potentially we could start you out as like a couple extras, like on they listed some of the shows that were like popular at the time. They're like, Jesse, Make It or Break It, like all this stuff. They're like, you start out as extras, obviously, but that's kind of how you build your way up. We can get you that type of stuff like pretty much right away.
Yeah.
But they said the problem is, they said, we can get your foot in the door for you. Like, that's what we're here for. We're not paying for stuff. So they said, like, you have to, pay to like fly out there. You got to pay for an agent. You got to pay for, obviously if you're staying out there, you got to pay for where you're going to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so they pretty much mapped out like what like it would cost each of us, both of us, to like between like finding like like living expenses, the hiring the agent, like everything like that. And like Eric and I went home, we like looked, we were like, dude, like I'm in my first year of college, you're in high school. I was like, are we
Yeah.
really about to give up everything that we're doing right now, like to go and chase this right now? And at the end of the day, we just like looked at each other and we were like, can't do it. I was like, I just can't drop everything right when I
Yeah.
start college to go and chase this. Like at this point in my life, like maybe if I was younger, yeah, but and he was like same thing. So we ended up calling and we said like sorry, like just between the
Can't do
cost
it.
and time, we just turned it down. So that was that.
Probably a good move. Probably a good move on your part.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, if I could have had a career in like Disney, I don't know, but uh,
Mhm.
it's such a long shot. It's not worth giving up
Yeah, right.
everything you have.
What's your favorite Sunday afternoon munching food when you're sitting around glued to the TV watching Red Zone with Scott Hansen?
It has to be with Scott Hansen because Andrew Siciliano is not the same.
Right. Agreed. 100% agreed. Yes.
Uh, I would say I'm a like I saw when you put that question in there, and I was really thinking about it. And we always had a pregame thing, like before the first Sunday of the season, we always get Chipotle. That was like a big thing for us. But then like I never usually get it once the season starts, and then like after the first week, I still really enjoy pizza. That's like my favorite food. So it's not like a munchy food, but like if I have a box of pizza and I can like sit there and I can just like have slice after slice while I'm watching, that's like my comfort food. That's like, hey, it's cold outside on a Sunday, I'm watching football, I want a hot pizza there, and I just want to sit there on the couch eating pizza. That's like my perfect thing. What's yours?
I'm a bar food guy, so I don't have one food. It's kind of, I guess I cheated this question. People said nachos before. They like this big nacho platter with pulled pork and cheese and everything. That's cool. But I like potato skins and fried mushrooms and mozzarella sticks and pizza puffs and a hamburger and, that kind of stuff, a combo. Like, I don't mind pizza too, as far as that goes. But a lot of the bars by us out here, I mean, some of the places it's like dollar bottle on Sunday afternoon. It's dollar bottles, half price appetizers, and $6 like 18-inch pizzas. I mean, you can go there all day long. Yeah, I get to like. I mean, I start doing shots of Jameson, and then I'm doing 12 shots of Jameson, and I'm buying everybody else shots, and it ended up being a $200 day on dollar bottle day. That's so it's that's kind of how that works. But I'm more of a quantity than quality guy, kind of as far as that goes. So I kind of relate to you a little bit, but most of the food around here, most of the places we go to are pretty good. Good hamburgers, big, half 3/4 pound or 1 pound hamburgers, the whole thing of fried mushrooms, potato skins. I'm a pizza puff guy. If I can have a whole stack of pizza puff watching football all day long, I'm not sure if you eat pizza puffs a lot from like a roach coach.
Is that like like pizza rolls?
No, pizza puffs are about this big. I work construction all the time, so you ever see those silver cars, like all the food in them? They stop at construction sites, and everybody goes there and they buy like
a food truck?
or something. Yeah, it's a food truck, whatever. I mean, we call them roach coach. That's as far as that goes. It's roach coach. They have the best pizza puffs in the world. You can go to any restaurant you want to, but pizza puffs and a roach coach are the best. But only a handful of bars have pizza puffs, and they're about yay big. It's like a humongous pizza roll, but it's super, super, super greasy, and it's got like pepperoni and cheese and all this kind of stuff in there. They're phenomenal. I mean, if you're around here anytime, you got to get a pizza puff from this area. But I'm not sure what's in Baltimore, but
definitely not pizza puffs. I've never heard of them.
Oh, it's funny because some of the stuff that is popular in Baltimore, when we were talking before about like your kids, we've been to like 43 states already with our kids because they play sports, and like you're getting into now, like possibly starting off your family with a kid. My youngest kid's already 17 years old, so I have a 17, 18, 21, 20, and then a 25-year-old son. As far as that goes, so we always drove around. We do a family trip every year. Like to go to a handful of states. We went up to Niagara Falls. We went down to Texas. Went out to Vegas, all around the whole state of Colorado, all around the whole East Coast. So I mean, we've seen all that stuff. Been to Washington D.C. Gettysburg is awesome. Like I mean, I've seen tons of places. So I've ate food almost everywhere. As far as that goes. People told me about where their favorite foods at. I wrote it down. There's McGlynn's Pub in Delaware, kind of somewhere. There's two of them actually. One's in Delaware. One's in Delaware. One's right around, but they're right around that area also. So if you get a chance, go to McGlynn's Pub. We stopped there one time.
McGlynn's Pub. It has to be like a family related thing.
Probably. I went there and they gave me a shirt. They gave me a bunch of a big mug. They gave me a big platter with McGlynn's on there. They gave me a whole bunch of free shit to go home because my name is McGlynn. It was super cool of them to do that. But you'll see when the kids start coming, you're gonna be pretty busy. I've had to drop kids. My wife works second shift, so I had all 4 kids home by myself, and I still coach. I was a head coach of the football team, head coach of the baseball team, the t-ball team. I coached cheerleading for a year when my daughter's cheerleading coach quit. So I mean, you're gonna have to do all that stuff and pick kids up from babysitters and drop them off, and it's life gets really hectic for a while. So enjoy it now. Put the work in now because it's when it's about the family. It's hard to kind of say no. I can't go to this today because I got to do my fantasy football stuff. I got to do my fantasy baseball stuff. So get all the work in now so you can get it in and out as fast as possible when it comes to that season.
That's right. Yeah.
But all right, we got enough about you and me and our fun time. Let's get to some. I'm gonna hit some commissioner questions real fast. Are you more of a redraft or a fantasy or a dynasty guy?
Right now, I'm more of a redraft guy. I definitely want to get more into Dynasty than I am, and that's partly working with Kevin Coleman as much as I do on a day-to-day basis. I've kind of shifted more towards wanting to get more into that than I am. So I'd say right now redraft, but in another year or two, that could definitely be changed.
Get a bunch of guys, get 12 people at least, start a home league and make it a dynasty league, and hopefully to go for 30 years. Like Scott Fish talks about how he's been in the league for 33 years or something like that with all his buddies. Start now while you guys are young. It's I wish we would have done that in 1995, and our league would have been awesome. But do you play any home leagues or are all your stuff online leagues?
I have 2 home leagues. One that I'm the commissioner of, and then one that I'm not. It's still standard league, believe it or not. I know standard leagues
good for you
don't ever exist anymore, but yeah, that one's still been standard, and that's been my longest standing one. That's what got me into fantasy football, actually, that league. And I think that league's been going on 10 to 12 years. It's that was the league when I first joined that league where I'm that's ruining. That was with that first moment where you're like, if I lose, it ruins my entire week. You're like, if I lose this week, I'm gonna be pissed all week. That was where that passion came from, was first doing that home league.
Are you what's this? What's your favorite host site? Because I'm in a luxury with I'm in MFL, ESPN, Yahoo, Free Flickr, CBS, all this. What do you call it? Sleeper. It's terrible because I have to switch apps and go to MFL and set 4 lineups, and ESPN and set 5 lineups, and Yahoo and set 4 lineups, and Free Flickr, CBS, and then do all my majority of my leagues are on all my home leagues are on Sleeper now. So it's what's your favorite one, and which one do you have the most of, or out of all your leagues, I guess?
I have the most on MFL, but that's, I think, it's my least favorite platform.
Yes.
There's a lot of problems with it. I'm hoping that almost most of them don't stay on there next year. ESPN's been the one I've used the longest, so just I've kind of I guess it's that hey, I this is what I'm used to. I have just kind of that customary bias to it, but I will say that Sleeper has really grown on me a lot. And if I can get my home leagues onto Sleeper, which I think most people are not going to do willingly because a lot of them have just been used to ESPN, and most of my home league guys are not they're into fantasy, but they're not to my level or Eric's level.
Yeah, right.
So they're I just like doing on an ESPN. Sleeper seems like more of a hardcore fantasy app to use. So I think I'll like Sleeper even more as time goes on. I already have the Sleeper alerts, which I didn't have before the season started. Once season started, I'd use that, and it's grown on me a lot. So I think by next season, I'm going to try to have most of my leagues on Sleeper.
That's what you got. What I did was I started a practice dynasty league for all the guys when we were getting into dynasty, because we were all redraft people. So I think it was 6 years ago we did a practice dynasty league, and it was so everybody got to learn how to use the functionality. We had the whole thing where you could trade draft picks, you could do all, so everybody got to know how to use the site. And then year 2, we started our dynasty league. So everybody knew what was going on. So you should probably do one more year, like redraft with draft picks, so everybody knows how to trade and do all that kind of stuff. And then start your dynasty league with 12 of your most, involved people as far as that goes. That's the kind of the way I found out how to do it, because we did it one year on MFL and it was an absolute disaster. People didn't know how to do the waiver wire stuff. We went from ESPN, which is like basic to that. And it was, I loved it as a commissioner. The settings were awesome. It took me a while to learn how to use them, but yeah, I mean, that's like the settings on MFL are there's nobody that has the settings they have. But we went back to ESPN for a year. Then I got him to go on the Sleeper, which now is the dynasty platform that we prefer. And everybody just kind of tell them to listen. I'm the commissioner. I'll run all the stuff. I'll take care of all the problems. Let's have one practice year, and then we'll switch. Then you guys will love Sleeper. We'll just stick with that with dynasty. Just kind of, you got to tell them like kind of, hey, I'm running a show here. It'll be easier for me to do my job if we have this platform. So, yeah, do it. Are you in a, do you like? Well, you kind of said it, you answered this a little bit, but you have a variety of leagues, or you like have all your leagues like streamlined, like we're almost all the same rules, or do you like having like, oh, I got to pick up this guy in a non-PPR and that one's in a tight end premium and this one's in a super flex? Do you like a variety, or like kind of like them all the same so it's easy to set your lineups and waiver stuff?
I mean, I know it's never going to be all the same, so I've kind of mentally accepted that. Yeah. I will say though, when I first adjusted from going to standard to any type of PPR, it took a little bit of adjustment just because I'm like, man, like this is stupid. I'm like, guys are getting like 5 times as many points, and it's like they're not even doing them. They're just, catching a screen yard pass or a screen pass for 2 yards, and they're getting, 1.2 points out of that, when like in my standard league, that's just 0.2 points. And like I was like, it's a little bit more getting used to, but I was like, once PPR became big, I was like, okay, like I'm in. And then to be honest with you, it wasn't until like a year and a half ago that I was starting to accept Superflex. I was like, this Superflex stuff, I was like, I like being able to know to take running backs early, or to take like running backs, wide receivers, wait on quarterbacks. I was like, this is something I've been growing up doing. Like, I don't like this much change. I think it's a little forced. And like, sure enough, Superflex is becoming the new norm. And now I've been around it enough and done enough leagues with it that now, like, with Scott Fishbowl, obviously Superflex too. Like, I'm like, okay, like, I'm not saying this is my preferred setting, but like, I can work with it. Like, I know how to draft now with it. I think the uncomfortability is not knowing how to draft, because you're like, okay, like I've spent hours and hours and hours and hours like researching, knowing how I'm going to make draft picks, what to do. And when the settings keep changing, it's like I have to relearn how to draft in this format. And I think that's the part that's a little like frustrating. So I do like the differentiation because it changes like my strategy. I think all the new things that keep coming in, that's when I'm like, all right, I think you're overkilling it. Like, let's not add something else, but I'm always open to different things.
I'm for that, because we have it where the wide receivers are a half point per reception, the running backs are 1 point per reception, and the tight ends are 1.75 per reception. And on top of that, it's 0.2 points per carry for running backs, and it's a point for first down for everybody. So they're all kind of like, so it's very hard to do. And then even like for quarterbacks, they get like 1.25 for rushing yard, like, so you're going to have guys like Mac Jones who gets 0. You're going to have guys like Lamar Jackson who just absolutely kill it, as far as they're obviously it's so you have to draft. Then you're drafting. What do I take? Do I take Kyle? Do I take Travis Kelce, or do I take Lamar Jackson, or am I taking, or am I taking, Saquon Barkley, or, Christian McCaffrey? Like, it makes things so much more even when the scoring is adjusted for everything as far as that goes. And you gotta just take that point in time, you're just taking best available. But I like those settings where everything's kind of jumbled all over the place and it's not just straight streamlined.
Yeah, I think also, like, if I play with more people that are more of that kind of mindset, just being in like the home leagues I'm in, and then obviously like all these online leagues I joined this year. I mean, they're not, most of them aren't like that. Actually, I don't think any of them are like that, but like that was just, again, like getting even just like the super flex or like, I mean, Scott Fishbowl is its own set of rules. Like, that was something I had to like listen to multiple podcasts to like process before I drafted. I was like, okay, like accurate quarterbacks. I was like, you don't just want a quarterback high up in a super flex. I was like, I need to get like accurate ones because he's penalizing for incomplete passes and picks.
Yeah.
And like it's small things like that. So like, I think as long as it's not like where I'm doing that in every league, where like every league is different. And like I get it. You said that you like that. I like some change, just not like too much to where I can like I can guys that I'm really big on, I can draft and I cannot have to feel like, okay, like, am I reaching for him here because he doesn't matter as much in this format as in this format type of thing.
Yeah. I'm going to show you my my rule book real fast. Let me go back to this. I'm going to show you my rule book real fast while we're. So this is, can you see this?
I can't see anything.
Let's see, where are we? Oh, I got to shoot. Okay. So here's my rule book. I call it, this is my newest league, or my second newest league, the old Clover's Dynasty League. Article 1 definitions, Article 2 governing agreement, all the stuff going on here, player management, ownership, anti-collusion rules, taxi squad, injured reserve, amendments I have in here, free agency, fab budget, roster size, expansion if we ever made the league like a 14-team league, voluntary withdrawal if you left, how do you have to leave the league? Like, everybody has to vote to make sure a new owner comes in, league fees, transactions, conference alignments, draft rules, draft order determination. There's like 17 pages of stuff here about tiebreakers, division of the pot, all this stuff that needs to be that. I mean, I'll share this if you're going to start a dynasty league, like I said, but it's like 17 pages of rules to start a dynasty league with that I kind of implement my stuff with now.
Yeah, that's pretty dope. Yeah.
It's a lot of years of people finding loopholes in every rule and every book that it kept adding and kept adding and kept adding and kept adding. People would find ways to collude, or hey, I'll give you $50 in next year's league fee if you give me Evan Smith or whoever that whatever year. So we've learned to kind of streamline the process as far as that goes. But all right, let's get to some football stuff. We're gonna get through this pretty fast now. We're a little bit over an hour. But Bears, Justin Fields with the ribs. Feel free to chime in any one of these guys if you want to. Melvin Gordon was hip situation. Browns, Baker Mayfield seems to be beat up, but he's still going to play. Zeke, knee bruise. He's already at practice. Miles Sanders, ankle. He said he should be okay. Jalen Hurts, ankle. Should be fine, I guess. Deebo Samuel's groin. It might be a few weeks out. Nobody knows yet. Dan Arnold, knee. DeAndre Swift, his shoulder. That's a big blow to a lot of like Nick Swift is a humongous DeAndre Swift guy, and that him being out for a possible week or two right before the playoffs is a humongous deal for a lot of people.
I think people thought he might be out for the year when it first happened.
Oh, I don't know if you saw it or not. I watched all these games on Red Zone, and I was like, that game was on Thanksgiving, right? Was it Thanksgiving game? Or, no. And when he got tackled, landed on his shoulder, he wasn't getting up. I was like, no. And it was, it was terrible because I got him in a bunch of leagues too. I had to pay out the nose for him, and watching your guys get hurt like that kind of sucks. But
yeah, that's if you're like, and you're like, I drafted really well. You're like, injuries just caught up to me. Like, that's the worst part of it, honestly.
I was watching the game last night, the Seahawks and the Washington football team. I got to be careful with that. So, but I saw when DeAndre Carter missed that block and Gibson got his leg done behind him. I'm like, I was an offensive lineman my whole life, and to watch receivers whiff on blocks all the time just makes me want to puke. So when I saw that, and on top of that, like, I love Antonio Gibson, and when I saw him miss that block and Antonio got hurt, I was like, there was my most expensive league that I needed Antonio Gibson to get 13 points, and he had 7 points when that happened. I'm like, if this MFer missed that block and gets in, I'm going to lose my most expensive league and possibly get knocked out of playoffs. And that son of a bitch missing a block, I'm going to be livid right now. So it was anyway. Gibson had a pretty good game, so that went fine.
I lost $100 because he didn't score a touchdown. I bet 100 on an anytime touchdown, and he gets like 150 total yards, 36 touches. Literally doesn't get in the end zone. I'm like, who's the last player to have 36 touches over like 150 plus yards and not score?
I was surprised he had so many dump off passes yesterday. That's usually a McKissick thing, but he had like 7 catches in the first like half. I was like, what? I mean, I think he had like 4 catches. I'm exaggerating because he's my guy. I'm trying to make him look better, but He had a lot of involvement. He got the ball a lot, and they were running the clock out the end of the game. And he's from going from a wide receiver to a 230-pound guy with his speed that can, get between the tackles. I'm surprised he didn't break one yesterday because Seattle was getting real tired towards the end of the game, and they were not, they were kind of letting him run free. But the safeties and the linebackers and the safeties and even the cornerbacks chipping in, like, kind of saved the day on a couple of those runs for the Seahawks. The only reason that game was close.
Yeah, they kept it obviously like real close to the end. I still don't understand on that fourth down play at the very end of the game where he threw it to Logan Thomas.
Yeah.
Why Gibson was not in the game, because he had just been on third down. He literally, I stayed up last night. Like I've been getting up at 4 a.m. to go to the gym when I've been coaching. I was telling you before the show, and so I stayed up last night because I was like, I bet the $100 of anytime touchdown. He is my DFS captain. I was like, all right, we're like all in on Gibson tonight, anytime touchdown. And like when I saw him doing what he was doing, I was like, all right, perfect. Like he won me like $25 in the Millie Maker, which doesn't sound like a lot, but like in the Millie Maker, only like the top 20% out of like the 180,000 that enter actually even make any money off of it.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like if you win any money in the Millie Maker, you're in the top 20% of people playing. And so like he was doing fine. Like he got me, I made like I think it was like a $15 entry fee last night. I made 25. So like that was fine. But like, I was like, all right, I need that touchdown. I was like, let me make $125 here real quick. I was like, it's anytime touchdown, Gibson. Like you touching the ball 30 plus times. And on that third down play at the end of the game, the man gets like stopped at the line of scrimmage. I thought he was brought down. He breaks out of it, sprints to the left side. Literally has like one guy to beat, and the guy twists him out of bounds at like the 1.5 yard line. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
And then I was like, all right, like fourth down. I was like, they're not kicking it. They're not kicking it. I was like, all right, like Joey Sly out there, they're gonna go for this. I was like, you have to give it back to Gibson. I was like, it's at 1.5 yards. I was like, plow. And if he doesn't get it, then they have it at the 1. I was like, and then when I saw Jared Patterson come in, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Right. I literally saw, and then the funny part was Jared Patterson lined up, and then they ended up calling a timeout. I was like, okay, like they're gonna take him off the field now because they called a timeout. Of course, he comes right back out there.
Right.
And I said, all right, so no, unless miraculously this game goes into overtime, I said there's no chance, because I said either Washington is scoring here and Seattle loses, or I said they don't score, and then I have to hope Seattle goes down the field, scores a touchdown, and gets a 2-point conversion with like under a minute. So I was like, this is it. And then, of course, like he does. Of course, they throw it. That stuff happens. Seattle scores. I'm like on the edge of my seat.
It was a great pass by Russ. He played like shit the whole game, and then at the very end, he nailed that right in the middle field. I was like, yes, overtime.
And then, of course, he misses the 2-point. Apparently, DK Metcalf was wide open. I didn't know that until I listened to something today. They were like, apparently he was like across the middle with his hand up, and like Russ missed him. And I was like, of course. So like that. So I'm glad Gibson was okay. I was able to get 36 touches last night. That's insane.
Yeah. I love that guy. He's my version of DeAndre Swift for Nick, as far as that goes. I love Antonio Gibson.
That's a lot of love, that's for sure.
It's a lot of love. Randall Cobb, groin. They're not playing this week, so he's lucky. Christian McCaffrey's he's on IR. It's done for the year. That's kind of sucks. It is what it is. But Darren Waller knee, he should play, but that's part of the game. We'll see what happens. Everybody says they should play until it's time to play. AJ Brown ribs, Dalvin Cook shoulder, probably out for the fantasy season. Was what I keep hearing. He's got a torn labrum. Both of his shoulders are messed up now. So I'm not. One of them's really messed up, and the other one's had a history of being messed up. So they're probably both. I'm guessing they're going to wait until the playoffs to bring him back. So
I think that there was a report today that said they expect about the next 2 games, and they're hopeful to get him back for the 3rd.
I thought they have a buy in there somewhere. I'm not gonna, I'll figure that out later. But I thought they have 2 games, or a game and then a buy, or something like that. But
I think it's 2 games, but then after the second game, it's like a Thursday night or something, and they don't play again until like Sunday night or Monday. So it's like almost like a mini buy.
That's what it is. Yeah. Okay, yeah. There's only one more week with buys. Yeah, never mind. All right. Let's see. Deshaun Watson, no news with him. So that's it. As for we just talked about the injuries. Let's talk about some waiver wires now. For the quarterback position, Taysom Hill obviously taking over the job. The Trevor Siemian project is over. I like Trevor Siemian as a backup quarterback, but he's never going to be. I love Jameis Winston. He's my favorite player in the NFL, and when he got hurt, I was, that's it is what it is. That sucked. But Taysom Hill is the number one quarterback waiver wire priority. Any chime in on that? Any waiver wire guys for quarterback that you're looking at this week or eyeballing?
Taysom Hill is definitely the one that's the least owned. I'm working on a start sit column this week, so some guys that could be out there depending on the size of your league. Like the guys I'm looking at are like Derek Carr and Carson Wentz and Taysom Hill are like my three streamable guys this week that I think you can play. Obviously at this point, outside the shallowest of leagues, a lot of these guys will be either kind of just floating around or on someone's bench. Not too many starting quarterbacks that you can say are going to sneak in there. Taysom Hill's the first one, obviously, because he was the backup, and no one's owning any backup QBs. So, but I mean, Taysom Hill, his rushing upside. So I'm actually personally spending a good amount of my fab that I have left to get him, because in a couple leagues I had Russell Wilson is my quarterback in one league. And those types of situations, I'm picking up him just because I'm Russell, I'm second place in that league, and I'm I don't know if I can trust Russ once fantasy playoffs come. Right. And I need another option with the floor that Taysom Hill gives you. I was I might have to spend $100+ to make sure I have that position locked up.
It's the playoffs. You got to do what you got to do, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly. Running backs. Alexander Madison, Kenny Ngakoue. I drafted Kenny Ngakoue, and he's been on almost every one of my rosters because I love the guy. I love he's like a miniature version of Antonio Gibson as far as I'm concerned. He's a big dude. He runs fast, but he doesn't have much. If you look at his college dominator rating, he doesn't have much. He's got 1% college dominator. But I mean, Antonio Gibson was a wide receiver in college, and look what he is now as far as running backs are concerned. So I like getting freaks that are big, Kenny's a 6'1", 220 pound dude. So he's big. He's put together pretty well, and he runs back kickoffs. He's ran back 2 already this year. He's the kind of guy I want on my roster in case somebody goes down, like we were talking about before. If Madison went down, Kenny Ngakoue, I just feel like if he got the opportunity, he could see the field. Obviously, with his kickoff return ability, he's got great vision. I'd love if he broke out. I don't know what I would do. I would probably just buy his jersey and I don't know where I'd wear it everywhere. Wear it to work. Chuba Hubbard, Amir Abdullah for the Panthers. That seems like Amir Abdullah is going to be the PPR guy. Chuba Hubbard will be the early down back.
Yeah, and Carolina has the second worst remaining run schedule as far as schedule for fantasy running backs rest of the season.
I saw that's. I guess that's another reason that Abdullah is probably more the go, because he's going to be getting the the swing passes and the screen passes and stuff, where Hubbard's going to get shot, stuffed up the middle the whole time. So that's, if you're looking for a PPR guy, I'd probably recommend Abdullah a little more than Chuba Hubbard. It's probably going to be 50-50, but Abdullah's going to get, obviously, if it's one guy catching the passes and one guy getting 2 yards in a cloud of dust, I'd better have the PPR guy. Dontrell Hilliard and Deontay Foreman, who do you have in that situation?
To be honest with you, it's interesting. I had some people DM me last week asking about which they should play. And I was like, if you have to play one, because the Patriots are one of the best teams against running backs. I was like, if you have to play one, I was like, if PPR, I'd play Hilliard. If it's standard, I'd play Foreman. And, obviously both of them had decent games. Just Hilliard was the one that got in the end zone. I think Foreman had over 100 yards. Hilliard had over 100 yards. At this point, I think it's the same thing. I think Foreman's going to get most of the work on the ground, and then Hilliard's going to be the more of the pass catching back. But then we have to see if McNichols comes back too, because what is that? What happens with that? It's an absolute mess. I don't have any confidence of telling people you should sit him, play him. I think it's if you're feeling lucky and you want to roll the dice, go ahead. It's too hard to predict right now.
All of these teams have a plethora of running backs that are kind of vulturing each other and stealing each other. I think Jamal Williams for the Lions, maybe the only person that has standalone value. I mean, Alexander Madison probably is too, but I don't think he's going to be, everybody's talking about the 2 weeks that he played. He had 26 touches. If it's a 5-game, stint until the rest of the season, they're not going to give Alexander Madison 22 carries and 5 catches every game. I don't think he's built like that as far as carrying the load. So I think Jamal Williams is more of a person that's going to have, the full load if Swift doesn't come back, I'm just saying. But those are probably my two top priorities: Madison and Jamal Williams. Maybe
For
Jamal
sure.
Williams, even Boston Scott for the Eagles, because we're not sure about Miles Sanders' ankle. No news on that yet. I just wish he'd stop taking some of. I wish he'd stop taking some of the receiving back touches from my guy on the Eagles. So I will see what happens with Boston Scott. He just pisses me off. He's that guy. He's like a mosquito. He cuts into everybody's work on that team, and he's not good at anything.
I will tell you this though. I'm no longer benching Boston Scott against the New York Giants. He has like 7 of his 11 career touchdowns against the Giants.
Yeah. I guess you can't do that. I understand. It is. I'm a Kenny Gainwell guy. So that's where my frustration comes with the Boston Scott situation, because I wanted Kenny Gainwell to be just, all the stuff, all the hype coming out of college that he, made everybody else sit on the bench when he led the team. He was the PPR guy, the monster. I wanted him to be something. I paid a lot to get him in almost every league, and he's kind of fading away. He had a couple games in the sun, and now he's kind of fading back in the back of the roster now. So Matt Breida from the Bills. I was always a Zach Moss guy, and he just kind of came in and cock blocked the whole team. So I'm kind of pissed about that one too. But Latavius Murray, DJ Dallas, another guy I rostered for a while. I just traded for him in a couple leagues too. I think DJ Dallas may be the future in Seattle. How do you feel about DJ Dallas?
I think he's the future as far as this year. I do think Seattle is going to overhaul that team. They need to, obviously, whether Russ is there or not, Coach Carroll's there or not. I think Chris Carson's played his last down in the NFL.
Yeah,
neck injuries like that are just like, you can't play with that. I think Cam Chancellor had something similar where it was like a neck thing popped up, and then the next thing you know, he retired.
Yeah, that's Chris Carson is a battering ram. He's a violent running back, and to have a neck fusion at the base of your neck, that's not something that a battering ram like him is going to be able to play through. I agree with you. I think his career is over.
Yeah, so I like DJ Dallas. I think could be there next year as a piece. I don't think he'll be the guy. I think they're going to draft. Seattle's so many holes.
Yes,
but I do think they're gonna. I do think they'll bring in another back that will be ahead of him, and I think he'll still be a compliment next year.
I think that they have so much other things to fill. So many other. The boat is taking water from 1,000 different directions. And,
yeah, you're right. You're not wrong. Like, I guess it's which holes do they want to fill?
Right. Van Jefferson from the Rams, Kendrick Bourne from the Patriots. He's a wide receiver. We jumped to wide receiver section here. And he's off this week, but MVS from the Packers. I picked him up in the offseason, figured he'd have a big year. He's starting to produce, but he got like 10 targets this week. I just think that even if Randall Cobb and everybody comes back, I think MVS may have this number 2 role finally locked up. I know Aaron Rodgers talked about him the entire offseason at the beginning of this season. So
is there a guy that gets 10 targets like in multiple weeks that is like more, I don't want to say disgusting, but like it's like, there's 3 games a year that MVS is going to absolutely just destroy the slate.
Right.
And then the rest of the time is just like empty targets, it feels like.
He has the 1 catch for 85 yards and a touchdown, and then the next week he has 10 targets, 3 catches for 17 yards, and it's like,
yeah.
So yeah, I get it. Let's go to tight ends. Jack Doyle seems to be possibly the hot hand in Indy. Cole Kmet is somebody. Obviously, I live in Chicago, so I watch the Bears all the time, and he looks pretty good. He looks lost sometimes, but when he's on the same page, he looks. When he's on the same page of fields, he seems to get the job done. But it seems like they're very rarely on the same page. So. He's got the talent, he's got the speed, he's a blocking abilities on the field a lot, and he seems to have taken the job over, but it's just a matter of getting this whole offense on the same page now. I just can't wait for Matt Nagy to be gone and the whole franchise to be obliterated and start from scratch here. So Tyler Conklin, Vikings, Evan Ingram, this is one person that could really, really, really benefit from a coaching change, offensive coordinator change, and a new quarterback, because I just saw Daniel Jones might not play this week. So a new quarterback usually relies on a tight end as a safety blanket, and someone with Ingram's caliber, with an offensive coordinator who might use a little bit more, it might be someone to pick up in your redraft or dynasty league for the playoffs for the home stretch, especially if Daniel Jones is going to be out for a while.
Yeah, I didn't see what his injury was, but yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think who the backup is. Is it I know it was Colt McCoy last year, but he's now with the Cardinals.
I'll tell you right now, it is Mike Lennon and Brian Lewerke. I don't know who the hell that is, but
I don't want any part of Mike Lennon. No part.
I mean, just to dump off to the tight end, I'll take it. But other than that, no. Yeah. So I don't know if you saw Russ Fisher, those guys. They talk about the trades that happened in their trade addicts leagues. We're going to run real fast. These are the trades that happened in my Mighty McGlynn home leagues, Mighty McGlynn Dynasty home leagues the last couple of weeks. Cordell Patterson for Michael Gallup and Jeff Wilson. Just kind of chime in and say, good trade, bad trade. Which side would you take? Cordell Patterson for Michael Gallup and Jeff Wilson. These are all Dynasty Superflex leagues.
See, I feel like if I'm selling Cordell Patterson, I mean, is this enough? Like, I know it's a Dynasty league, and maybe the other person's like, oh, is just like I'm paying for the 1 year, so I'm not going to give you a ton. But I like Michael Gallup. Jeff Wilson, to me, it's like I feel like he's like a throw-in because he's, behind a healthy Raheem Mostert, behind now Elijah Mitchell. At best case, he's maybe third on that team, and he's already had, a couple of years now on his tires. I would have loved to see if I could have gotten like Michael Gallup and another decent piece for Cordero.
Jeff Wilson won a lot of people championships last year by being the only healthy back in San Francisco. So I think people thought maybe he could replicate, not knowing that Elijah Mitchell was going to be such a stud last couple of weeks and probably took over that job. So this may have been the train of thought that Jeff Wilson's going to come back from his injury and be pretty well. And this guy is in he's losing this year, so he's in sell mode. The other guy's kind of in win now mode. So that's why the Cordell Patterson, getting rid of Cordell Patterson, inputting Michael Gallup, who's probably going to another team next year, and possible Jeff Wilson might be leaving also. So
I do like Michael Gallup part of it too. So I
love Michael Gallup. Yes. Caleb Lodge for Equinino St. Brown and Brevin Jordan. This is just pretty much Caleb Lodge for Brevin Jordan. That's in a dynasty. I'd probably take Brevin Jordan in a tight end premium 0.75 league.
For sure.
Derrick Henry for Derek Carr and James Robinson. Now this is a dynasty league, super flex. And, Henry's starting to get beat up a little bit. He's already 28 years old. Derek Carr was somebody I'm like, oh, this guy's going to suck. He's got 1 year left. Man, was I wrong on Derek Carr? So in a super flex, and James Robinson, he's still young. He can handle the workload. I think he's going to be at least a really good complimentary backup no matter where he goes for the next couple of years. So to get rid of Derrick Henry for Derek Carr and James Robinson had to be tough, but these guys can win now, and Derek Carr is a great quarterback too to have on your roster.
Yeah, I'm interested because James Robinson's obviously on his rookie deal, and he'll have ETN back there next year. So that's the only part I'm a little intrigued as far as what the split will be between Rob. Is it going to be one of those like a Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon situation right now where like next year and potentially the year after it's going to be split between them if they're healthy, and you're just going to be like just pulling your hair out trying to figure out like when you can start them and when, it's like, or like they're just both be flex plays. So like that's the only reason I'm a little like, it's not a bad trade, but just that headache next year kind of concerns me when ETN does come back.
Especially if the NFL adds an extra game. I think every team is going to have a rotation. The Derrick Henrys of the world and that kind of stuff, I think are, they're fading very fast. The Saquon Barkleys and the Derrick Henrys are probably, because now you see when those guys are gone, the entire franchise just kind of caves in.
Yeah.
So Davis Mills, who I love, and De'Ami Brown for Julio Jones. This is obviously somebody in a rebuild getting rid of Julio Jones.
Yeah, if you can get anything for Julio Jones, I would not be shocked if he retired at the end of this year with how
I would not be shocked either.
So I think anything you can get for him is a win.
Yeah. Mark Andrews, this is a tight end premium, 0.75 for Juju Smith-Schuster, Dan Arnold in the 2023 first.
Interesting that's a 2023 first and not a 2022 first.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this person, again, this is stuff I've learned just from working with Kevin as much as I have. Apparently, the 23 draft is a lot more loaded with offensive talent, and this 2022 draft is a lot more of a
wide receiver class.
Offensive line, defensive line. There's not as many skill players and quarterbacks in this draft as I'm hearing the 23 draft is going to have.
No running backs, or maybe one running back. Not too. I don't think there's any one like established tight end yet. There is no quarterbacks and a handful of a pretty decent size. Maybe it's 5 or 6 or 7 wide receivers that are thought to be pretty good. But other than that, you're exactly right. It's not a skill position draft. So 2023, I think everybody's trying to stack up right now for.
Yeah, like that's what made me stick out to me. Like, Dan Arnold, is fine. Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm interested to see if he can resurrect his career somewhere else. But that 23 first is a nice little add in there too. But I think that's a pretty with that in. I think that works.
Hunter Renfrow for Amari Rodgers in a 2022 second.
Do you like Amari Rodgers? Do you think that
I do?
I know there's some people that are really in on him. I don't know how I value him at this point. Especially if Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay.
Yes.
And who throws him the ball? And it's most likely not going to be anywhere near that skill set. So is that what's that going to mean for him starting next year?
Well, I think Devontae Adams will be gone too. So there's got to be someone that steps up, and it can't just be MVS and Randall Cobb.
Right.
So I think Amari Rodgers has definitely value. But only time will tell. Who do you like in that? You like Hunter Renfrow then?
He's really burst on the scene this year.
Yes.
I mean, it's a 2022 second. So, I mean, I think I like the Renfrow side a little bit more.
Mike Gesicki and Laviska Shenault, which you tell me this after, for Tony Pollard in a 2023 second.
I think I like the Pollard in 23 second better. Laviska Shenault is so frustrating. Like, I bought into the Laviska hype. I know there are some people that literally had him in their profile. Like, I was not to that level, but I took him, especially early on in draft season. I took him in like the 7th, 8th round, and you see like on Instagram, like he's working out with Trevor Lawrence. He looks great. It seems like he's gonna explode this year, and then it's like, dude, it's like I don't know if this is happening this year, when it's gonna happen for you. I love Tony Pollard. I think Tony Pollard, if he was the back somewhere, he wouldn't be outvalued as he is now. Like, he would be a legit like top 15 back if he had the chance to go somewhere. So I actually kind of like the Pollard side a little bit more for this one.
Yeah, well, you're wrong because that's my trade. So
I'm
a Dolphins fan, and I'm a Mike Gesicki fan, and tight end premium 0.75. He's he's pretty much a wide receiver. Laviska, he just got moved in a slot. I think the next couple of games you're going to see him kind of not break out, but emerge a little bit more than he has been as for what they've been using him as. Tony Pollard, yes, but as of right now, as long as Zeke is healthy, I mean, he's going to have these boom or bust games, or he's going to get 40 points a game, or he's going to get 12 or 6. So I like young receivers. I like to get rid of running backs who are already 25 years old, who are part of a committee. So I think he's 25, right? 24, turning 25 soon. So Trey Lance for Saquon Barkley in the 2022 third, early 2022 third. This is a super flex dynasty, remember? So
yeah. I mean, this one's probably the hardest one for me to judge so far. I think I'd go the Trey Lance side, just because I know you're getting the 2022 third, but I mean, like you said, it's a super flex league, so obviously quarterbacks are going to mean more. Trey Lance also is a great rushing floor, so that's going to be great for your quarterback right there. And I think in this offense, I think he's going to have room to succeed. Saquon Barkley, I know there's various degrees of how people feel about him going forward. I'm kind of in the middle where I'm like, I don't know if to say that he's completely washed, as some others say, but I also don't know if he's ever going to be a superstar like we kind of were seeing early on in his career. I feel like he's kind of in that middle ground. So I'm okay with this for the Trey Lance side. I don't know how you feel.
I'm okay with it, but I don't think Trey Lance is what everybody's cracked up to be. I think the 49ers messed up big time. I think they were pressured to take Trey Lance when they should have took Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones would have fit just fine in that offense. I know they like the Jimmy G running type quarterback and the Trey Lance running type quarterback, but we're here to win football games. I know we're fantasy people, and Trey Lance may get a lot of like fantasy stats, but he didn't have. What did he have in college? 13 games, 12 games, something like that. in a shitty conference.
It's like Mitch. It's like Mitch Trubisky. I think he was right around the same amount of games.
Yeah, and Trubisky wasn't terrible. The Bears are just terrible. So that's no matter who they bring back there. They've never had a good quarterback their entire franchise. So I'd probably take the Saquon side right now because I think Barkley still has 4 years left in him of hopefully decent production. And the 2023, it's an early one, but hopefully you'll hit some kind of dart throw on that. But Juju Smith-Schuster for Myles Gaskin.
Give me the Smith-Schuster side.
Yeah, that's my trade too. Thank you. James Conner for Brian Edwards in an early 2022 second.
I think I'd take the Brian Edwards side.
Yes, I would too. That's James Conner's a win now guy. Obviously, he's a running back away from something, so James Conner's doing awesome, but he's the definition of sell high right now.
Agreed.
Darrell Henderson for late 2022 first.
I like the 2022 first late because, I kind of was eating crow earlier this season, but now it's kind of starting to unfold. I was not a big Darrell Henderson guy. Even when Cam Akers went down, I said it's just going to be a matter of time before he gets hurt. And luckily, it didn't really happen much until now. Yeah. But, he's not somebody I'm like, oh my God, he's incredibly talented. It's Cam Akers' job when he comes back there. And Darrell Henderson has already been in the league a couple of years. I like the 2022 first late, just also getting for my bias towards Darrell Henderson.
Yeah, right. I like Darrell Henderson. This is kind of a toss-up for me, but I understand that running backs only have a shelf life of a couple of years, so I'd take my chances and possibly getting a running back with the late first. So, yeah, I agree. Somebody who really likes DJ Dallas probably made this trade, hint, hint, for 2022 mid-third.
I get it. Like, if you think, like, and when you were talking about it, like, that they address – all these other holes and they don't touch running back, he's the most likely guy to step up as starting running back next year. So I would, if that's what ends up unfolding, like that's 100% the DJ Dallas side.
Yeah, and mid-20, if you're not really familiar with Dynasty too much, but you're not going to get mid-third round is probably just at that point in time, it's dart throws, You're already, those are guys you're going to cut when his roster cut timing goes down. This is a big one that happened the other day. Lamar Jackson, for Cam Akers, Justin Fields, and a 2023 first.
Interesting. This is very interesting. So I wonder if did this trade just happen?
Yes.
I wonder if this trade would have happened when Cam Akers first went down, because they were talking about how people aren't the same after Achilles injuries. And now we're seeing all these videos of Cam Akers working out and how he seems like he's going to come back better than ever. Because I remember when, like, again, I'm not as much in the Dynasty community as others, but like I remember when the Cam Akers injury happened, people were panicking about seeing if they could. What we know, Kevin again, bring him up a couple times, but like he was talking about like some of the trades he was hearing for Cam Akers, and he was like, people are just basically fire selling him because they think he's done. So I think this would be interesting to see if this trade would have happened then. I think this is a pretty fair trade. Unless Justin Fields ends up being, kind of a little bit of a lesser version of Lamar Jackson, which he's not going to run like Lamar, but he is going to get some rushing yards you would expect. Cam Akers, if he goes anywhere near what he used to be, and you have the 23 first, I think I'd take the Justin Fields side on this one.
I'm not a big Justin Fields fan. I know he's a great, he did really good at Ohio State. I hope he picks up the Bears offense. I never want to root for anybody to like fail or, have a team fail as far as that goes. But I just think Lamar's proved it already. He's already done it. As far as Achilles are concerned, Kenny Ngakoue tore his Achilles in college, and look what he's doing now. So I think we were kind of debunking the Achilles. Look at Marlon Mack. These guys are all starting to do that. And that was Achilles tear was a death sentence before, and now it's becoming like an ACL surgery. Yeah, it's people are getting back on the field soon, so it doesn't scare me. But I think I'm going to take if I get a 2023 first, it's somebody who's in win now who's taking Lamar Jackson probably. So their late's probably going to be, their first is probably going to be late. But it's 2023. We talked about that being a good class. If Akers pans out, Justin Fields pans out, and his first turns into something decent, it's a win-win-win, across the board. So
100%.
Yeah, I'll take that. So, all right, those are the trades that happened in my home leagues in the last week or so. So, real fast, we're going to try and break through this. It's sorry to keep you on this late. We got like 10 more minutes, so don't punch me in the face.
You're good.
All right, every week we evaluate a team that's sent in by a listener, decide if it's a simple rebuild or a full-scale remodel. What's the biggest needs of this team? Who are your keep trade cuts guys, and who would you trade to improve this team, and what would you do? What would you do? What would you send away to make these moves? So I'm going to bring up a team right here. Let me share it on the screen. Share screen. Take all the bad stuff off my computer before I share this. All right, so I have here, you can see this, right?
Yeah.
All right, so it says right here, full PPR, 0.75 PPR, tight end premium. Rosters are 12 teams, 25 man deep. Right now, it's a brand new league. This is our first year. It's 10 IR spots, no taxi. Players are put directly on the rosters after the rookie draft, which will be next year. So it'll expand to 30 players per team. 10 weekly starters, 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flex, and super flex. No kicker, no defense. We got a bonus for like 300 and 400 yards passing, 100 yards and 200 yards rushing and receiving, that kind of stuff. So it is super flex, so quarterback's important. He's got Justin Herbert, Derek Carr, Tua, and Davis Mills. For as far as super flex is concerned, you always want at least 3 quarterbacks. John Hogue from the Superflex Super Show, he says that you should have a minimum of like 5 and probably 7 on every one of your team. But if you only have a 25-man roster, you can't take up a third of your roster, which is quarterbacks. So to have it interchangeable, especially Tua is starting to pan out now. So his quarterback stable is pretty good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was like, yeah, it looks pretty nice. I mean, Justin Herbert's obviously a great guy to have as your number 1 right there, especially in a dynasty league. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Derek Carr, I think, is the perfect number 2 in a super flex league. Again, I'm not saying it as a number 1 you love it, but like as your number 2 right there, perfect.
Yes.
Tua's a great third guy there that you're like, hey, he's building up, and you're like, hey, if I have Davis Mills there, if you believe in Davis Mills, and you're like, maybe I can, if I want to have Tua and upgrade another area, and then kind of pick up a quarterback that's not quite as good, but I can upgrade a different area. I think he's kind of in that middle ground there. But I think the quarterback spot is great for this guy.
Agreed. All right, running back. He's got Alvin Kamara, Zeke Elliott, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, Boston Scott, Khalil Herbert, Patrick Taylor from the Packers, Todd Gurley, which I think he's dead. So his running back, he could start Pollard as a flex every week if he wanted to. Jacobs isn't really panning out like to what everybody expected this year. Kamara and Elliott are obviously your 1-2 to have Pollard, even as a flex is pretty good. But after that, Boston Scott's a kind of a plug and play, but not always a start. Khalil Herbert, he may be good for the future, but right now it's not his show. Taylor and Gurley, you can just cut them guys. So as far as his running backs stable here, he's got a pretty good, you want to have 2 studs, and then you want to have like 2 number 1 running backs if possible. You want to have like 3 number 2 running backs if possible. And then, whatever you could do is your fill-ins for, decent RB3s is kind of how you want your dynasty roster to look. If you can do that, he's got 2 number 1s. Kamara is starting to get, not that these guys are getting older or injury prone, but they're starting to show a little bit of age, from all the work they're having. So Kamara's been hurt last year. Last year he was awesome. This year he's been hurt a little bit. Mm-hmm. I just hope these injuries aren't going to take him down like some of the other running backs we've seen in the recent past. Jacobs, I don't know what's going to happen with him. Pollard, you talked about him earlier. So what do you think about the running backs he's got here?
Yeah, how you labeled it, I think, is exactly how I feel about it, except for one. Like, we talked about the bottom guys. I think, obviously, Kamara, Elliott, and Jacobs, 2 years ago, you're like, holy crap, like, I'm rolling in riches.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of like Elliott is steadily been declining. He's still useful. So, like, this is the time to trade him. It's not like he's completely washed. Kamara is definitely starting to trend in that direction. So, like, these are guys you're, like, still trading where they still have good value. They don't have, like, value like 2 years ago, but they still have good value. Jacobs is always kind of a meh guy for me. I think you definitely can trade him if someone's higher on him.
Yeah.
The one guy that you have here, I'm kind of interested just to put feelers out. If I had Khalil Herbert And I'm in a league with people that, when they saw what they, and they're like, hey, like, I think, maybe Montgomery isn't the guy. Khalil Herbert is the only guy that could rush for 100 yards on the Bucs. Maybe there's something there. I might put some feelers out to see what people would offer for him. Just curious to be like, hey, like, if you're in a dynasty, if you're a believer in his upside to this extent, what are you offering me for him? Because I think right now, like, he's got a good value to him.
If you were running back deficient on your team, you needed a running back and possibly someone who could take over the team next year, in Khalil Herbert, because they lost, they had Patterson a couple years ago. They had Tevin Coleman is probably not coming back from his knee injuries, from his stuff. So if you got Khalil Herbert, if somebody had Khalil Herbert and you wanted a running back, especially someone that you maybe could pan out in the future, what are you trading somebody to get Khalil Herbert?
It's a good question. I would probably look, obviously, again, if I need a running back, I'm probably giving him like a wide receiver, most likely. Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough because he's a hold for me. Like, I got him as a kind of a hold, or a keep, or a hold, as far as that goes, because he's someone, if you sell him, you're not going to get much for him, but his future could be, his potential is very high. So he's just someone I like to keep in my bench, stash away, unless somebody overwhelms me with a really good trade. I'm probably not getting rid of him. So his wide receiver core, he's got Calvin Ridley, who decided not to play football anymore and kind of screwed a lot of fantasy owners this year. I finally got rid of him this week because this is the week that he could have came back and he didn't. So I don't think he's coming back.
You think he's done for good?
No, in my dynasty leagues, I don't have him anywhere, thank God. But in my redraft leagues that I have, like this is the week that I finally cut him because this was the week he came back. I don't think he's done for good. I think he's just, I don't know what's going on in his life or what's going on. I don't wish mental illness upon anybody, even my worst enemy. So hopefully he figures out what's going on and can shake it off, or, talk to a shrink or his family or his best friends and kind of get back into where he was, because he's special. He's already 26 years old, though. This kind of scares me, taking time off when you're already, that at this age, so he might even be older than that, actually. So scares me a little bit, but, he's on the roster. It's part of his team. You got to value him as somebody who you got to think that he's coming back. So Jerry Jeudy's been a major disappointment so far. He had a couple decent games, but I think he's not panning out to what everybody thought. Kadarius Toney's the opposite of that situation, where he's kind of turning it on a little bit. Maybe someone I didn't like before that I was wrong on, that kind of showed out for a week. But he's just kind of if he keeps hitting injuries all the time, that's going to be a problem. OBJ, first week on the job, already had 10 targets and a touchdown with the Rams, or his second week on the job, a first really starting role. He got banged up a little bit, but he could do really good things with that offense, especially if he's filling in a role for Robert Woods, who got hurt. So Jacoby Myers is doing pretty well. Van Jefferson just hit a long touchdown this year, but I don't like to have too many people on the same team on my rosters. Josh Palmer, if you were in dynasty leagues, this is a name you should know and be trading for everywhere you can right now. Josh Palmer is a fan favorite, especially if Mike Williams is gone next year. It'll be the Josh Palmer show on that team as a big slot receiver. So get him anywhere if you possibly can. Tyler Johnson, if Chris Godwin goes somewhere, Tyler Johnson will be someone that will be, obviously, I'm not sure if Tom Brady's coming back, but Tyler Johnson can play a big thing in this, a big part of this offense if Antonio Brown's gone and Chris Godwin's gone. So he's a dynasty hold also. KJ Osborne, we saw his talent a couple times. Devin Duvernay, Lynn Bowden, you just cut him. Jalen Guyton, a lot of buzz about him earlier, didn't really pan out. Olamide Zacchaeus, another guy you could probably just possibly cut if you needed room for a waiver wire guy. Ray McLeod, everybody had, again, some of that, a little bit of buzz, but he's not somebody you can keep on a team if you didn't need it. If you had to pick up somebody else, like a running back this week that, a flyer, I would definitely cut him. But what do you think about the receivers here? He seems to have a pretty good stable, huh?
Yeah, I'm keeping Jeudy and Jefferson. If I'm not mistaken, isn't OBJ a free agent after this year?
I don't know what happened with that contract because he got signed mid-year, so I really didn't absorb the whole thing as far as that goes.
Yeah, I think he's a free agent after this year, so I think that Van Jefferson could still be have a lot of value past this year, because if OBJ is not back, then he's going to probably have his role continue to increase, going into next year, assuming, again, he doesn't re-sign. But I'm a big Jerry Jeudy guy, and I think obviously right now the value is very low on him, but so I would definitely be trading for him if I could get him because he's got elite separation skills. Like his footwork and the way he can get open is just it's something that I remember when I was watching his tape. It's like it's unlike anybody I've ever seen, and I think it gets masked because of who's playing quarterback for the
Yes.
Broncos. And I think, if I were to tell you right now that the Broncos have Aaron Rodgers come next year, like this is a guy that's like, again, no one's Devontae Adams, but if there's a guy in this offense that's going to replicate the Devontae Adams role, to me, it's more Jerry Jeudy than Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton's the throw it down the field. He's going to make a jump ball catch. Jerry Judy's the guy that's going to separate off the line, get free on those quick slants, and take it to the house, especially because he's fast. I think that he's a guy right now, like if anybody's selling him, I'm buying while his stock is this low.
So I mean, this is a good situation. We're talking about Aaron Rodgers. Wherever he goes, I think Devontae Adams going with him. So what happens if Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers both show up on the Broncos' doorstep and sign with them? And now it's Devontae Adams who's the number one guy, and then it's Cortland Sutton, and then Jerry Jeudy and Tim Patrick and Noah Fant and the running backs on the backfield. What happens then? Where's Jerry Judy's stock then?
So the only thing is if I can't see Aaron Rodgers and Adams going to Denver. So maybe if that's the narrative that they doesn't go to Denver because they just re-signed Patrick and Sutton.
Everybody.
And Judy's on his, first round contract. So it's like you basically would be paying an exorbitant amount of money to that many wide receivers and Noah Fant on his, first contract too. Like, I think he was, if I'm not mistaken, he was an early second round pick too. So he's making a decent amount of money. I can't see them being able to pay Devontae Adams. So if Aaron Rodgers did go to Denver, I can't see where Adams could feasibly be able to go there. So, even if it was Russell Wilson, like Russell Wilson goes to Denver.
I was just about to say they're telling somebody, hey, listen, we've locked up all of our talent here for you just to walk in and you don't have to do nothing but show up for practice and learn how to learn these guys' routes. They're making it very enticing for a good quarterback to come to Denver next year.
Exactly. So I mean that's why again, like you see what right now what Jerry Jeudy's doing. I had him as a top 24 wide receiver going into the year. Obviously he missed 6 games and that eliminated that ever happening. But like, yes, like I'm anywhere I can get Jerry Jeudy anywhere for that I can get to for next year. Like I'm 100% smashing that.
He was supposed to be this perfect situation with a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, and they don't seem to be meshing, as good as everybody thought. So, hopefully, I hope a quarterback comes in there and peppers Jerry Jeudy with targets, but I think it's just there's too many chefs in the kitchen in that situation. So, but he's got a really good running back. I mean, if Calvin Ridley does come back next year, this team is pretty much stacked at wide receiver with couple wide receiver, one good wide receiver, one with Ridley. I think Jerry Jeudy I consider like a mid to low kind of wide receiver 2. Tony, we'll see what happens. OBJ could be anything. He could be wide receiver 5 or wide receiver 2. Myers is a wide receiver like low 2, probably a wide receiver 3. Jefferson's pretty good. Josh Palmer, like I said, I think he's gonna be something next year. Tyler Johnson, he's got for a dynasty. This is a pretty good receiving core.
Yeah, cool. I like it.
Irv Smith Jr., Austin Hooper, Chris Herndon, Freddie Swain. Freddie Swain just caught a touchdown this week. I thought for sure that I never see Freddie Swain again, but that's Irv Smith's got a lot of hype around him, but he didn't really pan out. I hope he's not going to be like a Chris Herndon situation. Austin Hooper, he almost got hurt the other day, but he got back in the game. But I think he's gone next year too. He's going to find a new team. So he's got some across the board. Is a pretty decent dynasty roster. Would you stick with this team? He's got all of his picks for the next 2 years, 1st through 5th, first round, 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, across the board. So what moves are you making to make this team better? Just if you had like 1 or 2 things to say about this team, what are you doing?
If I had one, I mean, they definitely need an upgraded tight end. Yes. Like Irv Smith Jr., you're hoping he comes back. He fulfills the promise. Austin Hooper is getting up there. Herndon is Herndon, and Freddie Swain's Freddie Swain. Like, they need either, a young, impactful wide tight end that you can count on, or somebody that, again, you can at least that's a veteran that can give you a few years of decent production. I don't like that group. The other thing I would say is I need another young running back on this team.
Yeah.
The 3 running backs up top are great, but they're on the back 9 of their careers. I mean, Josh Jacobs, you can argue, I guess, but I would love, like some type of DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor. Like, not saying it has to be to that level, but like, let me get a good young first or second year back that I'm like, okay, I've got a few years of him being like an absolute stud before I have to consider selling him. And that's why I don't really see too much in that group.
I'm looking possibly at trading Zeke and maybe Jacoby Myers or something like that. And, and maybe whatever picks it needs to take done to get like a top, like maybe I'm trying for Kyle Pitts, who's on, everybody's kind of down on right now.
Yeah.
I'm doing whatever I can to get one. If I can get a Kyle Pitts on this team and then use the rest of my picks or, in the offseason, sign some running backs with the quarterbacks I have, and I just figured out my tight end position, I think that's the move to go. I think you nailed it. Just solidifying a tight end position is probably the move here.
What about, how do you feel about Pat Freiermuth if you're going down?
Freiermuth.
So if like people might still be like, oh, it's Kyle Pitts. So like the next guy up, Pat Freiermuth, if you offer like, if you're like, again, I'm not a huge Josh Jacobs guy. If you were like, I'll give you Josh Jacobs for Pat Freiermuth straight up.
I wouldn't take it, but I mean, if you can get that, I don't think anybody's ever going to take that. But if you can get rid of Josh Jacobs on this team and bring in Pat Freiermuth, I mean, he's had like 4 or 5 touchdowns in a row.
Yeah.
He's that would be a humongous upgrade to this team. Yes, that's things like this. This is why when you're in Dynasty, you can never say I'm not sending a trade. It's embarrassing or so and so. Yeah, I send out probably 50 trades a week all across the board, all my teams, because you never know what someone's thinking. And I always ask everybody in my leagues, can you counter this offer with something? I want to see what you got, what's going through your head. Send a counter, even if it's something crazy, or just text me players that you're interested in my team, and I'll text you back, and we'll go from there. Don't ever be afraid to send a trade across any dynasty league, because you never know what's going through somebody's head. Right. But I'm going to just say, Dave, thanks for coming on today, man. I kept you way longer than we talked about, and I totally apologize for that. And I told you, sometimes it's 45 minutes, sometimes it's 5 hours, but it is what it is. But thanks for joining him, and thanks for joining me on my little hobby called the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast. I try to put together every week or so. Not that any of the 4 people that listen to this show don't know you already on Twitter, but please tell everybody where they can find you on the Twitter machine and YouTube and all the rest of the platforms you're on.
Well, again, thanks for having me. It was an absolute blast. And having not talked with you for a little while, like face to face like this, is real cool catching up with you. You can find me on Twitter at dmendio2, and usually tweeting out fantasy stuff or food or dad jokes, stuff like that. And then all my work, my football articles are the 33rd team. My baseball articles are at Fantrax. And then everything else I do is all triple play podcasts, any type of media content, any type of anything that I like to do and that makes me and that makes like triple play different from all these other brands that you see out there, that I take a lot of time and pride and joy in trying to inject that type of stuff into triple play fantasy. So if any of you haven't heard of triple play fantasy, that's definitely the place I would want you guys to go check out and see the stuff we're doing over there.
It's absolutely awesome. And thanks for being on, Dave. Again, I'm John McGlynn. You can find me on a Twitter machine at JohnMcGlynn75. I listen to podcasts. I tweet out stupid stuff, and that's pretty much I do. I do my own podcast for fun. And Dave, like I tell everybody else, may your home always be too small for all of your friends. That's my little kind of goodbye to everybody out there. Thanks, Twitter world, for YouTube world, for watching us, and thanks, Nick Script, for letting me use your platform here, your YouTube stuff, to make this show happen. So thanks, everyone.